Story 1. Monster-in-law locked herself in a room with my crying newborn baby, refusing to feed him. I had to call the police to get my baby back. Nearly a year ago, I gave birth to my first child. He's so perfect and lovely, and literally the light of my life and my purpose for living. But that's not why I'm here. Before giving birth, basically my whole pregnancy, I appreciated how kind and attentive everyone was towards me, especially my MAL, who constantly bought things for the baby. I had the best pregnancy too, and my MIL would actually ask how I was. She'd make me snacks like chocolate-covered strawberries and charcuterie boards. Her behavior towards me was really new. I wasn't used to this sort of attention and consideration, but I'll get into that in a bit here. Even though she was super kind and thoughtful, I couldn't shake the feeling that she did it more for herself than for me. So, in my head, I was sort of thinking that she had ulterior motives. But other than that, I had no complaints about her actions during that time. I was trying to soak it all in while I could. She was refurbishing this antique crib and matching change table for my husband and I. It seemed like the two of us had turned over a new leaf, but there was always something in the back of my mind that had my guard up with her. She had burned me so many times in the past and didn't treat me well in the early years that my husband and I were dating. Now, a little backstory. So, when my husband, her son, and I started dating, we started dating in our last year of high school. It's been 12 years since. When we started dating, it was super obvious that she wasn't all impressed with her son dating me. She was repulsed by me. I should mention too that I'm an obvious minority. I'm of a different culture than my husband, and there were little comments that she'd make about the color of my skin and my family name. I felt like an outsider in my own husband's family at the time, constantly walking on eggshells around his mother. She wouldn't greet me when I came into the home. When she cooked dinner and I was over, she'd bring out just enough dishes and cutlery for her, my FIL, my husband, and his sister, but she'd never have anything out for me. So I'd have to go into the cupboard and get it myself. I once brought over a bunch of clothes and purses that I no longer wore or used. I put them in a black garbage bag, and my SIL, at the time she was 3 years younger, and I were going through the bags so that she could pick out what she wanted before I donated them. While we were doing this in the living room, my MIL comes home and walks into the back door from the garage. She sees us going through this black bag. She's like, "Why are you doing through the trash?" And she directed the question to my SIL. And my SIL is just like, "Oh, OP brought them over, so I can go through them before she gets rid of them." And then AL snaps at her and she's like, "I don't want you going through that old." She literally rips the bag out from our hands and takes it, and I'm sitting there in shock. She takes it outside the back and I watch her throw the bag over the fence to where the garbage is. My SAL is just looking at me and she's like, "I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Hey, you don't have to apologize." Then my MIL came back in and told my SIL to go upstairs, and then I was just left there sitting in the living room alone until my husband got home from hockey practice. Then my MIL wasn't going to let us go to graduation together. My husband literally told me that she said to him that she didn't want him looking back at pictures of me and him together at grad when there were prettier girls to go with. Yeah, that happened. When my husband had a fit and sort of told her where to go, she told him that she'd stop paying for his hockey equipment if we went together. Then my FIL at the time said it was nonsense and said that the money wasn't hers to spend, so that was hilarious. And then when we went to go and find him a suit, his mom didn't want me going with them either. She tried to tell him that he had to maintain a certain grade in order to stay together with me. And then she'd say that they weren't going to pay for the limo for either of our grads. We went to different high schools, so there was going to be 2 separate grads, mine and his. After we graduated, my husband went away to play hockey during the winter. The only times that I could really go and see him were either when he had away games, so like he's visiting from whatever city was his home team, or if I drove to whatever city he was stationed. This was rare, because I was going to university at the time and didn't have a lot of cash for gas. At the away games, I'd be greeting and hugging my husband, and she'd straight up not acknowledge my presence and talk to him as if I wasn't there. She'd mentioned that she met a really beautiful girl at work who was interested in dating me, so she gave her his number. And my husband would be like, "What the heck is wrong with you? I'm dating OP. I love OP." She did this at almost every away game. In the early years, I was the thinnest I'd ever been because of an eating disorder I suffered from at the time, But his mom still made comments about my butt and hips. But those things on my body just don't go away. She talked to my SIL about how she thought I was so fat and ugly, and she didn't know how her son was with me. And then, of course, my SIL would tell me this. She would ask her SIL if she had any friends that could date my husband. Okay, so jump to once I gave birth. My in-laws came to the hospital right away. Like, I'm talking right away. I ended up having to get an emergency C-section, and when I was being wheeled into my hospital room after the surgery, I saw my in-laws at the nurse's desk asking if I was out yet. So then they try to get into the room, but the nurses are like, "Oh, you can't be in here until we're done just checking OP out a bit." So they wait outside the room. I'm already thinking that's a bit weird. So then while they're doing whatever it is to me, they take our son out to also get checked out, and I think it was some sort of K-shot. Then as they bring our son back into our room, my in-laws follow. I haven't even had a chance to really hold my son yet, other than a bit of trying to get him to latch right away. Then the nurses leave and they go in to pick up our son. My husband is sort of too tired to say anything at the time, and I'm still kind of in shock from having to go into surgery. They didn't bother to ask how I was doing. They were holding and smiling at our son. They actually ignored the fact that I was even there. They asked questions to my husband. They asked how the labor went and how the surgery went without even directing any question to me. I felt so tired and I was in pain, but I just smiled through it and accepted that these are my husband's parents, and a part of me was like, oh, maybe they just don't want to bother me. But then they came back to the hospital every day we were there. They made it seem like they were caring too, because they asked my husband if we wanted anything. All I craved was a McDonald's breakfast sandwich and an iced coffee. So my husband told them what I wanted. So they were like, cool, on our way. Then when they get to the hospital, turns out they went to go pick up some weird Chinese food buffet stuff. I'm like, great, thanks. So grateful that they brought us some food. But dang, like, when you have a craving for your first meal after giving birth, it's all you think about for days until you get it. And every day we were there, they hogged our son and held him, and again, didn't ask me anything or acknowledge me. After being discharged from the hospital, my in-laws continued to visit our house. I wasn't feeling well enough for visitors, but my husband didn't tell them not to come over. So I had no choice but to stay up late and try to entertain them while still recovering from major surgery a few days ago. As time went on, I began to resent their constant presence, but I never spoke up about it. And usually people would offer to bring over snacks or maybe help clean the house or anything while the new parents settle in. But nope, nothing. All she wanted to do was hold our son. My husband ended up getting called into work. So then I felt anxious and started getting up even though I was in serious pain and cleaning up and making food while my in-laws sat on the couch and cooed at my beautiful baby boy. Then I'm on social media later and I see that they posted an announcement of their first grandson and tagged my husband but didn't tag me. And then they gave him the wrong name. I legally hyphenated my son's name so it's both mine and my husband's last name, but they only included my husband's last name. Fast forward 2 weeks and they basically forced my husband and I to go out for wings with them at this pub, which we instantly regretted. It was a month after giving birth when we visited my in-laws' place, and I had hoped they would have prepared a special meal or some balloons as a surprise. But to my disappointment, there was nothing of the sort. Maybe it was the hormones, but I couldn't help feeling upset. To make matters worse, my in-laws were smokers and they didn't wash or anything before holding baby. And then that's when I was like, hey guys, could you not smoke when you know that baby is going to be over? And I didn't even get a response. And then my husband reiterates it and she goes, yeah, but it's not going to kill him. And then I go to open my mouth and then my husband goes, just don't, or else we don't have to come over. And she goes, okay, got it. We were visiting them every other day, and it felt like my husband cared more about making them happy than respecting my wishes. Every time we went over, they would take the baby away from me, which was overwhelming and frustrating, and it made me feel really awkward. Not only that, but they'd just show up to our place at 8 p.m. to see our son. But we'd be trying to do quiet time and put him to bed. Then they'd just get him riled up, or we'd wait too long and he'd get a second wind and he wouldn't be sleeping until 10 p.m. I'm like, okay, sorry guys, can you not come by past 7 p.m.? We're trying to set a sleep schedule for our son. And she'd say, We didn't do anything like that while my husband was a baby. And I say, well, it's different times and this is what we're choosing to do, so we'd appreciate it. And she just scoffs. So, jump to now, and I just recently started going back to work a couple of days a week. My MIL insisted I bring baby over to their place instead of her coming to our place, and I could work in their office. So sure, I do it. The office is actually a nice setup, so I'm getting a lot done. I'm really grateful for their help and support. Then one time, she's having a hard time putting baby to sleep. I'm like, maybe he's just teething. Then I go to make a tea and realize that she hasn't fed him his lunchtime bottle and it's already so far from the time that he's supposed to get it. I go upstairs with this bottle and I'm like, hey, MOL. He's probably hungry. If you want to give him this bottle, he'll likely go right to sleep. Then she shoots me this evil look and she's like, back off. I know what I'm doing. Then I'm like, okay. Maybe don't talk to me that way. I know my own son. Now you're just starving him and he's not going to go to sleep without a full belly. And she gets up from bed with him in her arms and she slams the door in my face. And I hear the door lock. I'm like, there is no way that she literally just did this. My son is screaming his head off and I feel this rage come upon me, but I'm trying to stay cool. So I start knocking on the door and I'm like, hey MOL, don't want to step on your toes, but I can get him to sleep if you want to open up. She straight up tells me to bug her off. Then I'm like, nope. So I start knocking even harder and I'm like, open up the door please. She ignores me. Then even harder. I'm like, please open the door. She continues to ignore me. I do this a few more times until I'm basically banging on the door and trying to use my body to get in, all while my son is screaming his lungs off and literally choking now and coughing because he's crying so hard. So then I'm like, if you don't open up the door, I'm calling the police. Nothing. So I dial 911, and then the police ended up coming and telling her to give me back my baby. And they really didn't do much other than say that she can be put under investigation for harming a child. And they asked me if I wanted to press charges. And I said no. But now I'm here. I told my husband what happened and he's actually furious. So, do I press charges? What do I do? Am I blowing this out of proportion? Is this just some sort of postpartum rage? Help. Update. Okay, so my husband actually took this really seriously and he's just as fed up as I am. I cannot believe I've even let it go this far. After we got back home and he saw the state of our boy, my husband had called his parents and reamed them out and told them that they'll never have anything to do with our son again. We went complete NC with them right away. My husband didn't want anything like this happening again to our baby. He didn't want to take that chance. He said it's not just about the two of us anymore, it's about protecting our son, and he's so right. Our poor baby cried so much that he broke blood vessels in his eyes and now half of his face is all swollen. And I feel like such a failure for not kicking down that door. We were actually investigated by social services too, which was great, not. I also went back to the police department and talked to the officer who came by and said I wanted to press charges for child endangerment. They had to take pictures of my poor boy for evidence, and they took statements from my husband and I. FIL called my husband today multiple times, and wouldn't you know it, the voicemails all said MIL finally got arrested after he finished calling us every name in the book. Not my problem anymore. That wretched woman's finally getting what she deserves. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I found out my ex-husband's new wife was bullying our daughter when my little girl didn't want to invite her to her birthday party. But then her son smashed cake in my child's face. I 32F have a daughter, 9, going on 10F with my ex-husband, 36M. We divorced when she was 3, and it wasn't exactly on the best terms. Actually, it was pretty terrible, but I'll get to that. He ended up remarrying one of his coworkers pretty quickly after we split. I'll call her Melissa to keep things simple. They have a son together, 6M, who my daughter has to deal with whenever she's at her dad's place. For some context, my daughter has always been a quiet kid. She's the type who will sit in the corner with a book rather than run around with other kids. Nothing wrong with that. I was the same way as a child. Her dad was always more outgoing, so I think he sometimes doesn't understand why she's not more, social, I guess. Melissa is also super extroverted and loud, which I think makes my daughter uncomfortable sometimes. So, my daughter's birthday is coming up soon. The other day, I was sitting with her going through all the birthday stuff, the cake, and who she wants to invite. We were making good progress until we got to the guest list part. I noticed she got really quiet and seemed anxious about something. At first, I thought maybe she was worried about inviting some kid from school she doesn't get along with, or maybe she wanted to invite someone I don't approve of. But when I asked what was wrong, she hesitated for a while before telling me that she didn't want to invite Melissa. This caught me off guard because even though Melissa isn't my favorite person, obviously I always thought she and my daughter got along okay. At least that's what my daughter always led me to believe when I asked about her time at her dad's. I asked her why, and what she told me made my blood boil. Apparently, Melissa makes these weird passive-aggressive comments all the time when my ex isn't around or is busy with work. My daughter told me when Melissa picks her up from dance class, she'll say stuff to the other moms like, "That's why I prefer boys. Girls only like pink and tutus," right in front of my daughter. She's called my daughter a brat behind her back, but loud enough for her to hear. There was one time when my daughter didn't finish her dinner because she wasn't feeling well, and Melissa told her she was high maintenance and too picky for her own good. The worst part is how she handles conflicts between my daughter and her half-brother. According to my daughter, whenever her half-brother does something to annoy her, like breaking her toys or calling her names, Melissa always takes her son's side. She'll punish my daughter and let her son off with the "boys will be boys" excuse or some other BS like that. My daughter told me about a time when her half-brother deliberately ripped a page out of her favorite book, and Melissa told her to stop making such a big deal out of it, and that he's just a little boy who doesn't know any better. My daughter also mentioned something that happened a few weeks back when she was working on a school project at her dad's house. Her half-brother kept interrupting and wanting to play, and when she asked for some space to finish her work, Melissa told her she was being selfish and needed to learn to share her time. The project ended up being late because she couldn't concentrate and she got a lower grade than she usually does. When she tried to explain to her teacher why it was late, she was too embarrassed to tell the real reason and just said she forgot about it. I asked about her dad's reaction to all this, and apparently he's hardly ever around when it happens. He works from home but is always locked in his office on calls. So Melissa pretty much has free rein to treat my daughter however she wants. My daughter never felt comfortable telling him because she said she doesn't want to make problems for her dad. That broke my heart. She's been keeping this all to herself because she's worried about her dad's happiness. What kind of burden is that to put on a 9-year-old? I thought about it overnight and decided that I wasn't going to force my daughter to have someone at her birthday that makes her uncomfortable. It's her day after all. So I called my ex to let him know the date of the party. I also wanted to discuss with him what our daughter had told me, but I never got the chance. I think I was on speakerphone because when I mentioned that Melissa wasn't invited, I suddenly heard her screaming in the background about how I'm trying to destroy her family and driving a wedge between her and her stepdaughter. My ex got all defensive, too, saying I was being petty and using our daughter to get back at them for getting together. He even had the nerve to bring up something from years ago when I didn't invite his mother to a school event because she had made some comments about my parenting that was completely different. His mother had criticized me to my face in front of other parents at a PTA meeting, and the school event was one where each kid could only have 2 guests. Anyway, for the record, yes, we divorced because he told me he had fallen in love with Melissa and wanted to confess. So, yeah, there's that whole thing. He worked late all the time, and I later found out those late nights were spent with her. But that was years ago, and I've moved on. I ended the call with my ex because it was getting nowhere and he was just defending Melissa without even asking why her daughter didn't want her there. He texted me later saying I was being unreasonable and that excluding Melissa would only create more division in the family. I replied that it wasn't about him or Melissa or me. It was about our daughter and what would make her birthday special. He didn't respond after that. My sister thinks I should just invite Melissa to keep the peace, but I feel like that would be betraying my daughter's trust. She finally opened up to me about something that's been bothering her, and I want her to know that I take her feelings seriously. My best friend says I'm doing the right thing by standing my ground, but she's never been a big fan of my ex anyway, so I'm not sure if her opinion is biased. So, AITA for not inviting my ex-husband's wife to my daughter's birthday party because my daughter specifically asked me not to? Edit. I see a lot of people asking questions in the comments, so let me clarify some things. My daughter's half-sibling is 4 years younger than her. My daughter was born in April. Her half-brother was born in March, the year after the divorce. He just turned 6. And yes, we divorced because my ex-husband told me he was in love with Melissa and wanted to confess. I'm not making that up. He literally sat me down one night after I put our daughter to bed and told me he had developed feelings for someone at work and wanted to explore that relationship. When I asked if he was already seeing her, he admitted they had kissed once at a work event, but swore nothing else had happened yet. I found out later from a mutual friend that it had been going on for months. We have 50-50 custody, always have. We switch every week, Sunday to Sunday. It seems to work okay for our daughter, and she has her own room at both houses. My ex does have a busy job and works crazy hours. Even when we were married, he was always working later on weekends. I'm not saying Melissa is entirely to blame for his absence. He's always been a workaholic. For those asking about my relationship status, yes, I've dated since the divorce, but I'm currently single. Update 1. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the comments and support. Some of you were pretty harsh about my ex, but I get it. Some of you also said I should go straight to a lawyer and try to change our custody arrangement, but I wanted to give him a chance to fix things first. A lot of you asked for an update, so here it is. So, a lot happened since my last post. First of all, I asked my ex to meet me for lunch alone without Melissa. He agreed, which honestly surprised me. Maybe all the messages about me going to court scared him. I don't know. We met at this place near his office that we used to go to when we were still married. It was weird being there again with him, but whatever. I tried to be as calm and factual as possible, even though I wanted to scream at him for being so oblivious. At first, he was super defensive and said our daughter was probably overreacting or misunderstanding things. He even suggested that maybe I had somehow coached her into saying these things, which made me want to throw my water in his face. I told him point blank that even if that were somehow true, his relationship with his daughter was at serious risk here. I asked him if he was willing to risk losing his connection with her just to avoid confronting Melissa about her behavior. That seemed to finally get through to him a little. I gave him a clear choice. Fix the problem with Melissa or I'd go back to court for more custody. I didn't want to threaten that, but honestly, I'll do whatever it takes to protect my daughter. He got quiet after that, and I could tell he was actually thinking about it instead of just dismissing everything I said. He promised he would talk to Melissa and pay more attention to how she interacts with our daughter. He also said he would try to be more present when our daughter is at their house instead of always working. I told him I'd believe it when I saw it, but that I was willing to give him a chance to make things right before involving lawyers. Last Friday, when I went to pick up my daughter from his house, I pulled her aside and asked how things had been. She told me that her dad had been spending a lot more time with her, picking her up from school and activities, helping with homework, actually playing with her instead of just working all the time. So that was something at least. Then Melissa came up to me while my daughter was getting her stuff. She was acting all nice, which was weird because she's usually pretty cold to me. She said she accepted not going to the party, but still wanted to see my daughter blow out candles on her actual birthday. She'd baked a cake and asked if it would be okay to do a small thing before we left. I didn't want to cause a scene, and the fact that she was making an effort seemed positive, so I asked my daughter if she was okay with it. She nodded, though I could tell she wasn't thrilled about it. So we all gathered around this cake Melissa had made. My daughter, Melissa, my ex, and the half-brother. It was actually a pretty nice cake, which had my daughter's favorite colors. I was starting to think maybe I had misjudged the situation and things were going to get better. Here's where things went wrong. When my daughter blew out the candles, her half-brother decided it would be hilarious to smash my daughter's face right into the cake. I'm not even kidding. If this wasn't a 6-year-old kid, I swear I would have lost it completely. Melissa and her son burst out laughing while my daughter was in tears with cake all over her face and hair. Her unicorn headband that she loves got broken in the process and there was frosting all over her new sweater. The look on my daughter's face was heartbreaking. She was so humiliated and upset. Melissa had the audacity to tell my daughter she was being dramatic and emotional and needed to learn to take a joke. I was about to say something when my ex actually stepped in and told his son that what he did was not okay. Melissa immediately got defensive and said he was just playing and my daughter was overreacting. We all started arguing. Me, Melissa, and my ex. To my surprise, my ex actually took my side and told Melissa that she needed to apologize to our daughter for laughing and for dismissing her feelings. In the middle of all this, I realized my daughter had disappeared. So I went to find her. She was in the bathroom trying to clean cake out of her hair and crying silently. It broke my heart. I helped her get cleaned up as best I could and we just left. I didn't even say goodbye to my ex or Melissa. I was too angry and I knew if I stayed, I would say things I might regret. She was still upset in the car, so I stopped for ice cream and tried to cheer her up. I told her she didn't have to go back to her dad's for a while if she didn't want to. She asked if that was allowed, and I said we would figure it out. I didn't want to put any more pressure on her by asking her to make big decisions, but I also wanted her to know she had options. The actual birthday party went okay the next day. She invited about 10 kids from her class and a couple from her dance class. Her dad came without Melissa or the half-brother, which was for the best. He brought her a really nice gift. During the party, I pulled my ex aside and told him I was serious about seeking more custody because of his wife's bullying. I mentioned the cake incident as further evidence that Melissa and her son have no respect for our daughter's feelings. He didn't argue with me this time, which was a first. He actually seemed worried, which made me think maybe he was finally taking this seriously. My daughter seemed to have a good time at her party, although I noticed she was quieter than usual. One of her friends asked about the half-brother, and I overheard my daughter saying she didn't want to talk about him. I'm worried about the long-term effects all this might have on her. I've been thinking about finding her a therapist to talk to, but I'm not sure if that would make her feel like there's something wrong with her. I might ask her pediatrician for advice. Anyway, that's where things stand right now. I've started documenting everything. All the incidents my daughter has told me about, the cake thing, everything, just in case I do need to go to court eventually. I'm hoping it won't come to that, but I need to be prepared. I'll update again when there's more to share. Edit. Some people are asking about my daughter's reaction. My daughter is extremely shy and quiet. She doesn't really talk much except to me and her dad. And even then, only if spoken to first, unless it's about something she's really into, like space or unicorns or this book series she loves. When she gets upset, she doesn't throw tantrums or anything. She just goes completely silent and cries. That's what happened after the cake thing. She just started crying and went to the bathroom to be alone. It's always been her way of handling things that upset her. For those saying I should have confronted Melissa and her son right then and there, believe me, I wanted to. But making a bigger scene would have only embarrassed my daughter more, and she was already upset enough. I chose to focus on her needs in that moment rather than my anger. And no, my daughter hasn't been diagnosed with anything like anxiety or depression, though I've sometimes wondered if she might have some mild social anxiety. She's always been reserved, even as a toddler. Her teachers say she's well-behaved and does great academically, but they've mentioned she could participate more in class discussions. I don't want to label her or make her feel different, but maybe the therapist idea isn't so bad. Update 2. Hi everyone. I saw a lot of you asking for another update, so here it is. Sorry it took a while. Things have been pretty hectic around here. My daughter. After the cake incident, I sat down with her and asked some more detailed questions. I wanted to know if Melissa or her half-brother had ever laid hands on her before, played these kinds of pranks, or behaved inappropriately in any other way. She told me no, explaining that the fights with her half-brother are mainly just him being annoying and getting in her space. Things like changing the TV channel when she's watching something, messing with her stuff, or making noise when she's trying to read. Typical little brother annoyances, but still frustrating for her, especially when Melissa always takes his side. I also asked if anyone else from either side of the family had ever made her feel uncomfortable. And again, she said no. My ex's parents are actually pretty good with her. They take her out for special days sometimes and always remember her birthday and stuff. My parents adore her and spoil her rotten. Of course, since my last post, she's been seeing a child psychiatrist twice a week. I took the advice of many commenters and found someone who specializes in children dealing with blended families. At first, my daughter was reluctant to go, but she seems to like the doctor now. They do art therapy or something. I'm not really sure of all the details because my daughter says their sessions are private, but she seems a little more confident after each visit, so I think it's helping. I didn't mention this earlier, but apparently the bullying from Melissa only really started about 2 months ago. Before that, Melissa was never particularly warm to my daughter, but she wasn't openly hostile either. I don't know if it's related, though I strongly suspect it is, but it was around the time that Melissa had a miscarriage. My ex mentioned it in passing during a drop-off, but we didn't really discuss it. Not that it excuses her behavior at all, but it might explain the timing. Maybe she's taking out her grief and frustration on my daughter, which is completely unacceptable, but at least gives some context to the sudden change. My daughter has been staying with me most of the time lately. She still sees her dad, but they usually go out somewhere together instead of her staying at his house. Last weekend, they went to a science museum that had a special exhibit on space, and she came home really excited about it. She showed me all the pictures they took and talked nonstop about black holes and galaxies. It was nice to see. To be completely honest, I feel like a terrible mom. I didn't see any of the signs. My daughter was suffering and I had no clue. I keep thinking about all the time she came home from her dad's house and I asked her how it went, and she just said, "Fine" or "Okay." I should have pushed harder, asked more specific questions, paid more attention to her moods. I'm doing everything I can to fix things now, but I can't help feeling I failed her. I've been talking to a lawyer friend of mine, not officially retaining her, just getting some advice about what my options are regarding custody. She says that without clear evidence of abuse, it might be hard to get the current arrangement changed. The cake incident isn't enough on its own, though it does show poor judgment on Melissa's part. My daughter's testimony would matter, but the court would be careful about putting her in the middle of an adult conflict. So, for now, I'm collecting information and keeping detailed records of everything just in case. Work has been crazy, too. I had to take some time off to deal with all this, and my boss has been understanding, but I can tell he's getting a little impatient. I'm trying to balance everything, being there for my daughter, keeping up with work, dealing with my ex, and the whole custody situation. It's exhausting, honestly. Some nights I just cry after my daughter goes to bed because it all feels so overwhelming. My ex-husband. He showed up at my door at 10 p.m. the other night. My ex called me, said he was outside and wanted to talk. I was already in my pajamas and about to go to bed, but I let him in anyway. And because I don't trust him, I recorded our conversation with his consent. I'm not trying to get in legal trouble or anything. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. He told me that since the birthday party, he's been thinking a lot about what to do. He said he had been watching Melissa more carefully, and he noticed things he hadn't picked up on before. The way she talked to our daughter, how she always favored her son, little comments she would make that seemed innocent, but actually weren't. He said he felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. He finally told Melissa about my intention to seek more custody. According to him, her response was that it wasn't such a bad idea because my daughter wasn't fitting into their family dynamic anyway. They started arguing, and at one point she just went off cursing about me and my daughter. Apparently, I'm a sneaky bitch who's still bitter about her affair with my ex-husband. She described my daughter as a spoiled, bratty princess who needs correction. Then she gave him an ultimatum. He has to choose between which woman he loves the most. Seriously, who says stuff like that? It's not a competition between his child and his wife. They're totally different relationships. He said that's when it clicked for him. He left the house, drove around for a while, and ended up at my doorstep. He's staying at a friend's place now while he figures out what to do about his relationship with Melissa. He seemed genuinely upset about the whole situation. And for the first time in years, I actually felt sorry for him. He kept saying he had failed our daughter and didn't know how to make it right. We talked for hours about our daughter, about our past, about what went wrong in our marriage. It was strange. Not comfortable exactly, but less tense than our conversations have been in a long time. We agreed that our daughter will stay with me during the week and visit him on weekends for now. He suggested maybe taking her out, just the two of them, rather than having her stay at his house where she would have to deal with Melissa and her half-brother. I made it clear that if he gets back together with Melissa, I'm absolutely going forward with seeking full custody. But if they split up, it would depend on his custody arrangement for his son because I don't want that kid around my daughter anymore after what happened. He agreed to these terms, which surprised me. I guess he's finally putting our daughter first. Before he left, he asked me if I thought there was any way to repair Melissa's relationship with our daughter. I told him honestly that I didn't know, but that it would take a lot of work and genuine change on Melissa's part. She would need to recognize what she's done wrong and make a real effort to be a better stepmother. I also said that our daughter might not be ready to forgive her right away or ever, and that he needed to respect that. He nodded and said he understood. The next day, he texted me to say thank you for listening and that he was going to make things right. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I guess we'll see. My daughter doesn't know about any of this yet. I don't want to get her hopes up or put any more pressure on her to manage adult relationships. When she's with her dad, she seems happy, so that's what matters for now. That's where things stand right now. My daughter is doing a little better with the help of therapy. My ex is living separately from Melissa while he figures things out. I'm still documenting everything and keeping my options open regarding custody. Thanks for all the support and advice. It really helped me feel less alone in all this. I'll update again if anything major changes, but for now, I'm focusing on helping my daughter feel safe and loved. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My wife said she was having drinks with friends on New Year's Eve when she ignored our daughter's calls. So I checked her phone records and found 3 months of secret messages. For context, coming into the new year, I had no idea my wife had been, at the bare minimum, having an emotional affair with a coworker. On New Year's Eve, before I found out about this, she came home and acted extremely cold toward me and our kids. She was angry. Earlier on that evening, she asked if she could go out to have one drink with a female coworker whom I knew and trusted. I told her that was cool, but that the kids were staying up for the ball drop, so as long as she could be back to celebrate with them, I was fine with it. Well, she ended up getting off of work at 11:30 and barely had enough time to get home after the ball dropped. She cried and cried. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she got invited to her friend's house to have drinks with them. All 3 of them women, all married. I had no issue. I said, "Look, I'm not sure what's wrong and why you're crying about this. That's fine, you deserve a girls' night out every once in a while. I don't mind watching the kids. Just go." I put the kids to bed. She left, and then about 3 hours later, so 3 a.m., I tried to contact her. No answer. I waited about 15 minutes, called her again. No answer. I called her friend who she's supposed to be with. No answer. She then texts me back 5 minutes later and says, "Yeah, I'm still coming home tonight. We're still drinking." Never in our 6 years of marriage had I felt a gut feeling that something else was going on. But that night it all hit me. I went through our phone records and found another number I was unfamiliar with that she had been in contact with all night, ignoring my calls, texting that number in between, etc. She had also been texting this number for a 3-month period daily. I never suspected that she would be texting another dude while right beside me watching family movies. As time has shown how I didn't see this, I have no idea. Maybe she had this individual listed as Mom in her phone. I don't know. I had never gotten this vibe or feeling our entire marriage. I was blindsided by it. Anyway, I confronted her about it through text with the proof. Like an idiot, she speeds home, deletes everything on her phone. No way of getting the backups restored, no way of ever knowing she did not meet up with this guy. Upon finding this out, I immediately told her I wanted a divorce. It was at this point she began getting violent with me, talking about everything I'd been doing to keep us financially stable, the 18-hour workdays that kept a roof over our heads. She told me that I needed to leave, even though I pay rent and both our kids are asleep. I refused. We slept in separate rooms that night, and the next day she tried to act like nothing even happened, claiming that she remembered we'd fought but couldn't remember what it was about. So I showed her the phone records, even though I'm positive she was just trying to pull some crap. She confesses who the individual was and says they flirted a lot but never met up. I told her if that was true, she'd have no issues restoring the text messages she deleted, at which point it was confirmed she deleted everything and deleted her last backup. She also saved a backup after they were deleted the night everything went to shit. Since then, she's tried hard to convince me they never did anything and never saw each other aside from work. I keep finding bits and pieces of things that don't make sense. Chunks of texts deleted from her friends' messages around that time, Pictures on her Google Drive from that night where she was with who she said she was. Deleted from her phone for what reason? The most damning evidence I have is for a 2-hour period on New Year's Eve. They stopped texting each other, then randomly started texting again at around 3 a.m. when I started calling and got that feeling. My gut tells me she left her friend's place, went to his place and went back, or she went straight to his place from our place, then went to her friends when she found out I was calling them. There are revealing pictures of herself she never sent me also on her Google Drive, taken on Snapchat. She's since given me all her attention. She initiates intimacy tenfold. The texting stopped. She shows me everything on her Snapchat and even downloads her data to show me she's not hitting other people up. I'm seeing the side of her I haven't seen since we were married all those years ago, but I can't help but trust my gut in demanding a divorce. I feel like she's kept things from me. Not knowing for sure is killing me inside. My parents know all of this and keep pressuring me to work it out and not dwell. My brothers are saying that I should get a divorce. Am I wrong in getting a divorce? Keep in mind the dates. It's now been over 4 months since this occurred. I'm positive she cut the individual completely out, but I still can't get over the not 100% knowing, and my gut tells me she's still lying. Edit 1. If some of this is confusing, ask and I will clarify. I will also give context where needed. Also, sorry for the way this was written. I'm aware there is some jumping back and forth, etc. I'm just scatterbrained right now. It's honestly getting to me more now than the night I found out. It just keeps building. I feel stupid. Edit 2. Also, forgot to add this. The individual in question is an employee she manages, as in she is his direct supervisor. I've heard there are greater legal consequences for this, but I have no idea. For clarification, the individual in question is actually morbidly obese. I'm by no means fit, but I'm not fat either. I went back and looked at the timestamps for the pictures that were deleted of her and her friends that night on Google Drive. Before that 2-hour period of no texting, during and after, there were several pictures taken with verified timestamps on them, as in they cannot be changed on Google Drive. Whether or not she has a friend that's tech-savvy and was able to do that within the 10 minutes it took her to get home upon confronting, I don't know. Is this possible? It's also worth noting that I come from a family that has thoroughly convinced one of my cousins that she needs to stay in her marriage even when her husband became solely reliant on her. Got addicted to coke, is still addicted to coke, and physically abused her, all because, by golly, no one in this family has ever gotten a divorce. So, essentially doing so, I would get disowned by my parents, my sister, all my cousins, all my aunts, all my uncles, but would still have the support of my 2 brothers. Mini update. Currently on morning break at work. Been reading through the comments. I have off tomorrow all day, so I will be heavily weighing my options when I get some time to myself tomorrow. May not update tomorrow, but I'll update y'all when I can. Thank you for all the input, positive and negative. The best thing I can do right now is just get through the work week, get my kids from daycare, and be mentally present for them. I've been ignoring her since last night, and she's been snapping and calling me all morning to see what's wrong. Update 1. My wife had an emotional affair at the bare minimum and may have cheated. Probably did, but she'll never admit it. Here is the update. I sit here typing this out on my morning break while listening to Tuesday's Gone by Lynyrd Skynyrd. After a long day of considering my options on Friday, I sat my wife down on Friday evening when she got off work and I had put the kids to bed. As soon as I brought up that my trust in her was completely gone, she immediately became argumentative and essentially stated, "I thought we had left this in the past. You never trusted me, did you?" I responded with, "Even if you didn't do anything physical or met up with him outside of work, you'll never let me see those text messages. You'll never pull the Snapchat data." She responded with, "You're right. Marriage is based off trust, and if you don't trust me, then maybe we ought to call it quits." The irony in this is that I worked 18 to 19-hour days for the past few years, barely being able to do anything I wanted to do in my life because I was supporting our children, getting them to bed, cleaning the house all the time, doing all the cooking, barely even getting enough sleep. Probably took years off my life just from the stress. She, on New Year's Eve, said, "The kids, you," and essentially went out to party with her friends, all the while ignoring calls from me and our daughter asking where she was, while also responding to her bare minimum emotional affair partner. Not getting into all the details so as to not repeat myself between this and the update. Long story short, in my state, we have to be separated for a year before a divorce can be finalized. When I agreed with her that we should start separating and that I had already been in contact with a lawyer, she freaked the hell out on me. She begged me not to go through with it, but alas, next Friday I will be dropping her off at her parents', a few hours away. The kids will be staying with me for now with the help of one of my brothers. I told her there was only one way I would put this off for now. Pull the data. Pull the texts. Prove your case. She looked down at the ground one more time and told me, that's a violation of her privacy. We haven't spoken since. For now, for my kids, I got to keep on keeping on. Update 2, Trickle Truth. First, it was a guy in a different state. Second, it was a coworker. Third, it was someone underneath her that she supervises. Fourth, and just now, I randomly got a text from her stating she may have told him she loves him but instantly regretted it, and that's it. Arrived. Dr. Evil. Also, let me reiterate, the process of separation starts this coming Friday. In my state, you cannot divorce immediately. It takes a full year. I say this because of all the people stating, just divorce and be done with it. And also those stating, stop giving second chances. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. OP, you do realize that your attorney can subpoena her phone records and texts, right? If you believe there was cheating, have your lawyer get all those messages. Then you'll know and she'll be out of luck. OP. Definitely going to happen. I've already been in contact with one, and in the state I live in, if there was infidelity, she essentially loses any choice in the matter of where the kids stay. Comment 2. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I've been in a similar situation. He wouldn't show me the texts, spent about a half hour clearing them, and then let me see his phone, LOL. OP. For me, it's pretty black and white. I'm 99.99999% sure she physically cheated. I'd love to just believe her and move on. But I can't. Not only did she delete all texts between them, she deleted all texts from multiple friends and coworkers from that same time as well, but left the ones from prior and after. As far as I'm concerned, her friends were in on it, and so was anyone else she deleted texts from. Update 3. Long story short, I found out my wife had been having an affair on New Year's Eve as I sat at home with our children. After ignoring calls from not only me but our daughter asking where she was, I went through our phone records to see that while she ignored our calls, she was accepting calls and texting another number quite frequently. For the record, it was the first time in over 12 years of being together that I'd ever gotten a gut feeling to do so. Never checked them prior to that night. I called the friends who she was supposed to be with, and they ignored my calls as well. After confronting her through text at around 4 o'clock or 5 a.m., she was home within 5 minutes screaming at me and yelling at me as I tried to sleep. I got blamed for everything, even though I'd been loyal and the financial breadwinner our entire marriage. She ended up gaslighting me and trickle-truthing as I tried to keep things together for our children. I'll spare you all the details as they can be found in previous updates and the original post. Fast forward to today. I filed for divorce against my family's wishes. Whole other story, also answered in previous update. We are separated, but the divorce can't be finalized until next year. 1 year of being separated is required. She begged and begged for me not to go through with it. Begged me to stay, not to toss everything out over one little mistake. Funny how she sees infidelity as a mistake that lasted 3 months. Yeah. Regardless, I've spent a lot of time with my kids. She sees them on weekends if she chooses, has only been a couple of times. I'd love to say that I'm over it all, but I'm still healing. I really did love her and I wish things worked out different, but I can never trust her again. She tried everything she could sexually to get me to stay. Hell, the day she finally confessed everything, I came home to her dressed up like never before, ready to go. I declined. She went as far as offering me head every day for the rest of our lives if I stayed. I've been working and taking care of the kids. It's harder on them than it is me if I'm being honest. They still don't understand. I've just been telling them, Mommy has some things she's working on. I don't have the heart to tell them we won't be a functional household anymore at this time. Also, my parents haven't once talked or reached out to me since I told them I was filing for divorce. Not even to check on my kids or anything. But I've been making this work with the help of my brother and a few good friends. A few girlfriends from the past have hit me up to see if I want to catch up, but I need to focus on myself and my kids. Thank you all for reaching out through DMang and commenting. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My stepdad abandoned me in the hospital to go on vacation with my mom and his kids. So I called my dad, and now CPS is involved because mom wants me to lie about being abandoned. I hate my stepdad, Kevin. He is one of the most frustrating, controlling, and inconsiderate people I have ever known. Ever since he married my mom, my life has been turned upside down. For context, my parents divorced 3 years ago. Mom and dad just never got along and would fight frequently. When my parents announced their divorce, I wasn't much surprised. My mom and dad were never a great match from the start, honestly. They tried to make it work, but there was always tension between them, especially when it came to responsibilities around the house. Although my mom technically stayed at home, she didn't enjoy any of the typical household duties that often come with that role. Cooking, cleaning, or even helping me with homework were not really her priorities, and she made no secret of her dislike for doing those things. Instead, she liked to spend a huge chunk of her time on her phone trying to build an online following. She considered herself a beauty influencer, always recording or posting something, even though her follower count wasn't exactly impressive. When she wasn't glued to her phone, she spent much of her time and a significant portion of my dad's income going out with her friends. Shopping sprees, brunches, or beauty treatments. Those were her regular activities. She never really fit the mold of what most people think of as a typical mom. While other parents generally check on their kids' assignments, making sure they are keeping up with their studies and asking about their daily lives, my mom's primary concern was to only look after herself. She constantly stressed about her appearance and also expected me to stay thin at all times and put together. It was almost as if she saw me more as a reflection of her own image than as an individual with my own needs. Anyways, after the divorce, both my parents got custody of me, and my time was split between them. Initially, it took me some time to adapt to living between two separate households. Just as I was starting to settle in, my mom met Kevin. She seemed smitten by him from the very first date. In just a few days, they started to officially date, and after a few weeks, mom made me meet him. Suddenly, this stranger was everywhere, and I was expected to welcome him into our lives with open arms. Now, I wouldn't have had any problem accepting Kevin if he were a decent person, but the reality is he's not. Right from the beginning, Kevin had these unrealistic expectations. He assumed I would just happily accept him as my new dad, even though he was, in my eyes, a total downgrade from my actual father. He constantly meddles in my life and seems to seize every opportunity to belittle me. It feels like no matter what I do, he finds a way to criticize or control me. For instance, he has 2 sons, and he becomes visibly annoyed with me whenever he thinks I'm acting too girly, as he likes to phrase it. He has outright told me that I shouldn't wear frocks or tight skirts, as if how I dress is any of his business. He also insists that I shouldn't leave my hair down and expects me to keep my long hair tied up in a bun all the time. It doesn't stop there. If I ever have friends over, he always interrupts us, claiming he's just checking in. But it's not just a quick hello or a casual inquiry. He literally barges in and hovers around as if he doesn't trust me and my friends to be alone. It's incredibly intrusive, and honestly, it's humiliating. When I protest or ask him to leave us alone, he brushes it off, saying things like, "Girls require constant supervision," and "we should just pretend like he's not even here." It's infuriating that he doesn't extend the same level of interference to his sons or seem to feel the need to constantly oversee their every move. When I've tried to bring up how much this bothers me with my mom, hoping for support or understanding, she brushes it off. She tells me he's just being protective, as though that excuses his behavior. On top of everything, Kevin's 2 sons make my life even harder. They have no concept of personal space, and their personalities clash with mine in every possible way. They are also relentless when it comes to bullying me. Whether it's teasing, mocking, or finding new ways to make me feel small, they pick on me constantly. And instead of stepping in, my mom dismisses their behavior by saying, "That's how all siblings bond." When my mom decided to marry Kevin after just a year of dating, she expected me to just fall in line. She told me in no uncertain terms that she loved Kevin and was determined to make their marriage work. She knew I had my doubts and frustrations, but she was clear about what she wanted from me: to give Kevin a chance and not to make things difficult for her. She urged me to accept him as part of our family. It felt like a lot to ask, especially given how fast everything was happening, but I wanted to support her and keep the peace, so I agreed to try. Since then, I've genuinely made an effort to accept Kevin and his sons. I've tried to go along with his routines and adapt to the changes, even though it's been far from easy. One of the things that bothers me most is how Kevin insists that I call him Dad. It doesn't feel right, and every time I say it, I can't help but feel resentment building up inside me. I already have a dad, and I don't want to replace him. Yet Kevin doesn't seem to understand or care that it's hard for me. But beyond the name, what's really painful is the shift in my mom's attention and priorities. After her marriage, she seems more focused on Kevin's sons than on me. She spends more time with them, helps them with things she never did for me, and acts more like a mother to them than she ever has with me. I sometimes feel like I've lost my place in her life. She is only ever a mom to Kevin's sons now. I'd love to live with my dad, especially since he is generally more understanding, but he had to move away once he got a new job in another city which paid him significantly better. He still visits me from time to time, but I stay with Mom full-time. Dad and I also talk on the phone regularly. He knows about some of the issues I have with Kevin and his sons because I've opened up to him about it. He's really supportive and has even tried to talk to my mom about the situation. I think he genuinely wants to help, but every time he brings it up, my mom shuts him down. She tells him to back off and insists that he shouldn't interfere in her marriage. Over the years, I've done my best, despite everything, to adjust to life with my new family. I've really tried to make an effort with Kevin and his sons, hoping that if I stayed patient and open, we could build some kind of positive relationship. But despite my efforts, I still feel invisible in my family. This year, Kevin unexpectedly received a promotion at work. When he came home, he proudly announced that he'd be treating all of us to a family trip. The news had us all excited, especially since it had been so long since we'd gone on a vacation together. He and Mom picked the place and booked tickets and accommodations for all of us. But as luck would have it, just a day before our trip, I got into a car accident with my mom. We were driving home after shopping for a few outfits for the upcoming vacation when, out of nowhere, another car slammed into us from behind. It wasn't a massive collision, but it was enough to throw us off and cause some injuries. My mom was mostly okay aside from a few scrapes and bruises here and there, but I wasn't so lucky. I ended up with a broken arm and a concussion from the impact. The ambulance was called, and before I knew it, I was being admitted to the hospital. When Kevin first heard about our accident, he rushed to the hospital, looking concerned. At first, I thought he was genuinely worried about me and my mom, that he was showing up because he cared about our well-being. But then he kept bringing up the trip, obsessing over whether or not we'd still be able to go and worrying that the money he'd spent would go to waste. The doctors eventually informed us that due to my concussion, I'd need to stay in the hospital for a few days for observation. They wanted to make sure I was okay before clearing me to go home, but travel was definitely off the table for me. Kevin looked at me frustrated, as if it was my fault for getting into the accident and wasting his money. Since I had to stay in the hospital, my mom half-heartedly offered to stay back with me. It gave me a glimmer of hope that she'd choose to support me during such a difficult time. However, Kevin was quick to jump in, arguing that since our plane tickets were already paid for, we were already losing money with me not going, and that it wouldn't make sense for my mom to also waste even more money by staying behind. He then turned to me and told me that at my age, I should be perfectly capable of staying at the hospital alone for a few days. He pointed out how safe the hospital was with doctors and nurses on call 24/7, implying that I had nothing to worry about. Kevin then went on to insist that once I was discharged, he'd arrange for a babysitter to stay with me at home. I argued with Kevin that I wasn't comfortable staying at the hospital alone or having a babysitter take care of me back home. I begged my mom to stay with me instead. My mom did try to stand up for me, telling Kevin that it wasn't right to just leave me alone in the hospital. She knew that this was wrong. However, Kevin still pushed back. He kept arguing that my mom's presence was unnecessary and that her staying would only mean sitting by my side and doing nothing productive the whole day. He made it sound as though her presence was useless, ignoring the emotional support she could actually provide. For him, not wasting his vacation money was more important than anything else. Clearly, he didn't see me as his real child, so he just didn't care about how I felt or what happened to me. I tried to plead that at 15, I shouldn't be left alone in the hospital. I was scared and in pain, and the idea of going through all of this without any family member around was overwhelming. I suggested a compromise, saying that maybe Mom could call my dad to come down and stay with me while she and Kevin would be gone. Sure, it would take a little time for him to get here since he lives in another city, but I was confident he'd come in a heartbeat if he knew I was hospitalized. I thought this could be a way for them to still go on their trip while making sure I wasn't alone. But Kevin shot the idea down almost immediately. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was being silly and making a big deal out of minor injuries. He brushed off my suggestion of calling my dad, claiming it would only make him worry unnecessarily. According to Kevin, there was no need to disrupt anyone else's plans over something as trivial as a concussion and broken arms, injuries that would heal just fine with a few days of hospital rest. In the end, Kevin's pressure worked. I looked at my mom, hoping she'd stand her ground and insist on staying with me, but as usual, she gave in to Kevin. Rather than fighting for what I needed, she agreed to leave. She stayed with me for only a single night, which brought me some comfort. I clung to the hope that maybe after seeing how vulnerable I felt, she would realize I needed her there. But the next day, Kevin showed up at the hospital to pick her up, eager to head off on the trip as planned, without any consideration for how I was doing. After my mom left me alone at the hospital, I felt abandoned and betrayed. After just a day of being there by myself, I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. One of the nurses noticed me crying, and after realizing that I didn't have anyone around to check on me, she kindly offered to call my mom. I told her it was fine, that they probably wouldn't answer anyway, but she insisted, so I gave her my dad's number. I was half expecting that my dad might scold me or tell me, just like my stepdad had, that I was overreacting and that being alone in the hospital wasn't a big deal. But the moment my dad picked up the phone and was informed by the nurse about my situation, he was immediately concerned. He sounded more worried than I'd heard him in a long time and asked me if my mom had really gone off on the trip without me. I explained the whole situation, telling him how Kevin had insisted it was fine to leave me because he didn't want the trip money to go to waste and how Mom had ultimately agreed to go along with it. My dad was furious. As I told him everything, he went quiet, but I could feel his anger simmering. He then told me that my mom had only mentioned we'd been in a minor fender bender, downplaying the entire situation. She hadn't mentioned a single word about my broken arms or my concussion or that she and Kevin would be leaving me alone in the hospital. According to what she'd told him, there was nothing to worry about, so he hadn't felt the need to reach out to me. Hearing that Mom had knowingly lied about my situation to Dad made me feel even more hurt and betrayed. My dad immediately assured me that he was going to come over as soon as possible. He told me he'd drop everything and drive over to the hospital and stay with me, no matter how long it would take. For the first time since I'd been admitted, I felt a sense of relief, knowing that my dad was coming to be by my side and that finally someone was taking my situation seriously. And as I sat there waiting, I realized just how much I needed that kind of support in my life. Within just 2 hours, my dad arrived at the hospital, and seeing him walk through the door felt like a huge weight had lifted off my chest. I started to cry as he hugged me and reassured me that everything was going to be okay. He then immediately went to speak with my doctors, making sure he understood every detail of my injuries. I could see the relief on his face when he confirmed that while my injuries were painful and serious, they weren't life-threatening. He was very regretful for not being there for me sooner and for not questioning my mom's version of events. He told me he regretted trusting that everything was fine without checking in on me directly, and it was clear that he was beating himself up over it. Obviously, my dad's anger toward Kevin was palpable. He was furious that my stepdad had the audacity to treat my needs so casually and then chose to go on a trip rather than ensuring I was taken care of. The lack of respect and care Kevin showed by leaving me to manage alone in a hospital revealed just how little I mattered to him. His actions spoke volumes, making it clear that despite being in a relationship with my mom, I was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. My dad tried to call Mom and Kevin, but neither of them picked up his calls. This made Dad even more furious, and he swore up and down that he was going to teach Kevin and Mom a lesson for abandoning me like this. Over the next 2 nights, my dad stayed right by my side, having taken leave from work to make sure I wouldn't be alone. He didn't leave me for a moment until I was finally discharged, and even then, he wasn't comfortable with me going back to Kevin's house where I'd be left with just a babysitter until everyone returned. Instead, he insisted I come home with him, so I agreed. Once I settled in at my dad's place, he tried reaching out to Mom again. She claimed she had missed his earlier calls because she was having so much fun with Kevin and his sons. Hearing this only fueled his anger more, and he didn't hold back. He firmly told her that her behavior was unacceptable, that abandoning me in the hospital was a serious act of neglect, and that he planned to take legal action to hold her and Kevin accountable. He even mentioned taking her to court if necessary so she could even lose custody of me, making it clear that he was prepared to report both her and Kevin for their actions. Since then, my phone has been constantly buzzing with calls and texts from both Kevin and my mom. Instead of acknowledging what they did or expressing any sort of apology, they've been sending message after message accusing me of ruining their vacation by telling my dad about my situation. Kevin has even gone as far as to say that all I had to do was keep my mouth shut and quietly stay in the hospital without making a fuss. According to them, everything would have been fine if I had just complied with them. I'd have for throwing my mom and stepdad under the bus. Update 1. For everyone asking, now that I've had some time to think about it and have talked to my dad, I realized that there have been so many times over the years that Kevin and Mom neglected me, and I just let it happen. I stayed quiet hoping things would change, but they never did. It's hard to admit, but I allowed myself to be pushed aside for their convenience, and now looking back, I can't believe I tolerated it for so long. For example, Kevin frequently undermined my relationship with my dad. He would constantly make negative comments about him, saying things like he was a deadbeat or a loser compared to him. This was because Kevin strongly believed my dad wasn't a good husband to my mom, and hence he had the right to bash on my dad. Mom also never asks him to stop. Whenever I have had issues at home or tried to talk to my mom about them, Kevin always dismisses my feelings by telling me that I make a big deal out of things, or I am just too sensitive because I am a girl. He often claims that this is why he is so lucky to have only sons. Kevin constantly shows favoritism toward his sons. Even in the smallest day-to-day interactions, he doesn't mind giving them money for any expense they have without hesitation. But whenever I ask my mom for anything, Kevin interrogates me with countless questions. He constantly claims that I am buying unnecessary things and wasting money, even though it's not even the money that I spend to begin with. It's my dad's money, so I'm allowed to spend it however I want. Despite being in the same house, we never spent quality time together as a family. Kevin and Mom would often make plans with his sons and leave me out, claiming they didn't want to bother me or that they wanted to spend some quality time together without me. This often left me feeling abandoned and unimportant. They would go out for dinner or do things that they enjoyed without considering that I might want to be included. This is probably why I was so excited to join them on the vacation, because they rarely ever included me in their plans. Kevin and Mom also don't like to celebrate my birthdays. They always tell me that since Kevin's sons don't make a big deal out of their birthdays, I shouldn't expect much either. It's like they believe that I don't deserve any special attention just because it's not their way. And when it comes to gifts, I end up getting things that I don't even like or use, as if they don't care enough to put any thought into what I would actually enjoy. Whenever I was struggling with school, Kevin would say things like, "You're just lazy, that's your problem," or, "Why do you even bother with that stuff?" Instead of asking what was going on or offering help, he made it about how it inconvenienced him. Mom, on the other hand, would just stay silent, not offering any comfort or words of encouragement, even though she knew how much it was affecting me. Update 2. So my dad did report Mom and stepdad to CPS. It wasn't a decision he made lightly, but he felt it was necessary to ensure that what had happened wasn't overlooked. He couldn't just sit back and let them treat me like that, leaving me behind in the hospital without a second thought. When Kevin and my mom returned home, they were contacted by CPS officials. They had to answer a whole bunch of questions explaining the situation, their actions, and their decision. I'm sure it was a wake-up call for them, one they probably weren't expecting. But the authorities agreed with my dad that leaving me behind in the hospital, especially after being injured, was unacceptable. They acknowledged that I had been neglected in a way that put my well-being at risk. Later, my mom called me. She wasn't exactly happy, and I could tell from her tone that she was upset at me. She told me that I had pushed both her and Kevin into a lot of trouble by involving CPS. It felt like she was blaming me for what happened, but I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. She warned me that CPS would be reaching out to me next to get my side of the story. My mom then continued to strongly urge me to lie to the authorities, telling me that if I didn't, then I could end up being taken away from her and she would lose custody of me. I argued with her that I wasn't comfortable lying to the authorities and that maybe she should have thought of the consequences of her actions when she abandoned me at the hospital that day. Mom then tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like how she had given me years of her life and that I needed to show my loyalty to her this time. She made it sound like I was somehow going to betray her by being honest with the authorities, as if I was the one at fault for everything that happened. But what really struck me was when she told me that lying would also protect Kevin and his sons. She explained that the CPS investigation could end up causing problems for Kevin, especially with his ex-wife. His ex-wife might find out and use this as ammunition to make Kevin pay for it. I just shook my head as I realized how my mom seemed more concerned about my stepdad's reputation and her own than about what I had been through. Not once did she ask me how I was doing or if I had recovered. Meanwhile, she continued to beg me, pleading with me to lie and protect her family. I couldn't take her selfishness anymore. I stood my ground and told her in no uncertain terms that I didn't care how this would affect her and Kevin, but I would not be lying to the authorities. I told her that I would be telling them exactly what had happened, and I wouldn't be covering up anything for anyone. If this meant she and Kevin were in trouble, then so be it. They were the adults here, they were the ones who had messed up, so I wasn't going to protect them from the consequences of their actions. My mom yelled at me some more and called me names, but I didn't give in. Ever since then, I feel guilty. However, I think I'm doing the right thing. Update 3. It's been almost 2 weeks since my last update. I have talked to the authorities and told them the truth. For now, I will be staying with my dad. My dad has been looking into schools so I can stay with him here permanently. I have to say that it feels nice to live with him. Mom has continued to try to guilt-trip me, but there's nothing else that she can do for now. She has been given a warning by CPS. Mom clearly neglected her responsibility to me, and that could not be ignored. CPS has asked her to make significant changes, like attending mandatory parenting classes and counseling to address her issues with neglect and her relationship with me. Kevin was also scrutinized as he had shown a lack of respect and care for me, especially during the hospital incident. CPS made it clear that they would be closely monitoring the situation if and whenever I came over to stay with them, and that any further neglect or mistreatment would lead to more serious consequences. Update 4. Wow. Can't believe that it's been almost 4 months now since I've been living with Dad. I feel like I'm finally in a place where I'm not constantly walking on eggshells or doubting my worth. Living with Dad has been such a huge relief. He's supportive, listens to me, and most importantly, he respects my space and my decisions. It's been a complete 180 compared to what I was dealing with before. I feel heard here. I can talk about my day, my struggles, my dreams, and he actually cares. I've been able to focus more on school and my mental health, and I feel like I'm finally getting back to who I really am. I've also made some amazing new friends at school, and I genuinely love spending time with them. In fact, last month, for the first time in a long time, I actually got to have a proper birthday celebration. I invited all my friends over and we had a pizza party while watching cheesy romantic movies. It was the kind of birthday I'd always wanted but never got when I lived with my mom and Kevin. As for Mom, things are still complicated. She's been trying to contact me more frequently lately, even sending me texts about how sorry she is and how much she misses me. Part of me feels guilty for staying away, but then I remember everything that led to this point. I've made it clear to her that I'm still not ready to come back, and while she tries to reach out, I've established boundaries for myself. Her actions were damaging, and she needs to take full responsibility for that. As for Kevin, he hasn't apologized or taken any responsibility for his actions. Honestly, I'm not surprised. He's never shown any real concern for me or my well-being. The way he treated me, especially when I was in the hospital, is something I'll never forget. Whether he ever changes or not doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm not waiting around to find out. I've learned to rely on myself and the people who truly care about me, and that's enough. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I discovered that my husband had an affair with my own sister, and my family had deliberately kept it a secret. I chose revenge. Perhaps the easiest way to begin is with an introduction and a little description of my family. My name is Maya, and I have just got the most devastating news of my life. But first, let me tell you a little bit about my family. I've always known I wasn't the favorite. Nobody ever said it directly, but you can feel it in your bones. It's the way your parents look at you against your siblings, how they communicate with you, and how they always choose them in both tiny and huge situations. My older sister, Chloe, was always the golden kid, the one who could do no wrong and received all of the love and attention while I watched from the background. Growing up, it was painfully clear. If Chloe had a good grade, it was saved on the refrigerator. If I received a decent mark, they gave me a brief smile before returning to chatting about Chloe's accomplishments. I was her shadow. Despite everything, I never loathed her. Sure, I despised my parents putting her on a pedestal, but Chloe was my sister, and I loved her. I assumed it was not her fault that my parents treated us differently. I assumed that was enough. Even if things weren't fair in childhood, we'd figure it out as adults, and our relationship would be balanced. But I was dreadfully mistaken. 2 days ago, everything fell apart. It was meant to be a wonderful evening. My parents had asked us for dinner to celebrate Chloe's pregnancy. I felt truly thrilled for her. Chloe and her husband, Liam, had been trying to have a baby for a long time, and I understood how important it was to her to have a family. So, I attended despite the underlying unease I'd always had around my relatives. It was a constant reminder that I wasn't good enough, that I was constantly second behind Chloe. Ethan, my husband, was by my side, as he had been for the previous 5 years. He understood how hard my connection with my family was, and he was always my anchor, the only person who made me feel seen. Or so I thought. Dinner was normal, even enjoyable. We gathered around the table, laughing and sharing Chloe's excellent news. My parents, as predicted, were ecstatic about Chloe's pregnancy, as if she had invented parenting. But this didn't surprise me anymore. I smiled and complimented her while pretending everything was okay. Then I accidentally overheard my parents talk, and my entire world crumbled. Following supper, I excused myself to visit the restroom. On my way, I went by the kitchen and overheard my parents whispering. I should have kept walking, but something about their whispered tones stopped me, and then I heard it. My mother said they would never inform me about Chloe's error. At first, I was perplexed, wondering what mistake they were referring to, but then the answer struck me like a smack in the face. They were talking about Chloe sleeping with my husband, Ethan. Apparently, it had happened months before, and they had opted not to inform me in order to protect Chloe's reputation because she was their lovely daughter and did not deserve to have her image ruined. They described it as a simple mistake, a slip in judgment that should be forgiven. Because what mattered was that Chloe became pregnant. I stood paralyzed, unable to move or breathe. The walls appeared to be closing in around me. My mind was filled with incredulity, betrayal, and wrath. My spouse, my partner, the man I trusted with my life, cheated on me with my own sister. Worse, my parents knew. They had kept it a secret because they wanted to protect Chloe rather than give me the truth. They selected her over me again. I felt like all of my years of feeling less worthy had been vindicated. They'd made their decision, and it wasn't mine. I don't even recall how I left that house that night. I dimly recall murmuring something about feeling ill and having to go. I couldn't face them. Not my parents, nor Chloe, and particularly not Ethan. So I just left, got into my car, and drove, but I can't recall where I went. I simply needed to get away from them, from the reality of what I had just learned. I felt as if my entire existence was a terrible joke, that nothing made sense anymore, and that I was plummeting into an abyss with no way out. It's been 2 days, and I'm still struggling to process it. I have not faced anyone yet. I haven't spoken to Ethan much since that night. He keeps asking me what's wrong and why I'm so aloof, but I can't even look him in the eye, let alone speak to him. Every time I see him, all I can think of is him and my sister Chloe. How could he have done this to me? How could she and my parents hide it like it didn't matter, as if I didn't exist? I keep revisiting that conversation in my memory, hearing my parents tell Chloe that her mistake would not ruin her life, that it was simply a moment of weakness. But how about my life? How about my marriage? Didn't it matter? Didn't I matter? I feel erased, like I'm a supporting role in a story that should have been mine, but it's always about Chloe. They will always protect her regardless of what she does or how much she hurts me. And now I'm gathering up the pieces, trying to find out how to move forward after everything I thought I knew has been flipped upside down. I honestly do not know what to do. I'm not sure whether I should face Ethan and demand the truth or talk to my parents and tell them how much they've wounded me. I'm not sure who to face first. I'm not even sure whether I have the strength to face Chloe. The notion of speaking with her and hearing any explanations she may have for betraying me makes me sick to my stomach. But I can't keep living this way, pretending everything is fine when it isn't. I can't hold this secret inside, allowing it to taint my every thought and moment. Part of me wants to scream at them, telling them how much they've wounded me and damaged me, but another part of me wants to leave, run away, and never look back. I'm not sure which segment to listen to. I'm not even sure whether there's a good choice here. All I know is that I am entirely broken, and I have no idea how to put myself back together. My entire life, I felt like I wasn't good enough, like I didn't matter. And now, after all of this, it appears that has been confirmed. My parents have made it obvious that Chloe will always be their top priority regardless of what she does or who she hurts. So where does it leave me? How can I move forward when the people who were supposed to love and protect me have repeatedly chosen someone else? I do not have the answers. I wish I had. I wish I knew what to do, how to mend it, or even how to move on. But right now, all I feel is tremendous betrayal and pain, and I have no idea how to stop it. That's why I'm here writing this post, hoping that anybody will tell me what to do, since I feel like I'm falling apart and have no idea how to stop it. I understand that it is easy to form an opinion from the outside, and that is exactly what I am seeking, but on the inside it feels overwhelming. Update 1. It's been over 2 weeks since my initial post. I have had time to think, feel, and plan. I was initially paralyzed by the agony, uncertainty, and betrayal. However, that immobility has dissipated, giving way to something colder, sharper, and far more frightening. At first, I believed confronting Ethan, Chloe, and my parents would provide some closure. But now I've decided on something completely different. Yes, I will face them, but not by yelling, crying, or demanding explanations. Instead, I want them to feel the suffering I've been through. I desire vengeance. I intend to get my revenge in the most complete manner possible while adhering to the letter of the law. For the past 2 days, I have been meticulous and patient. They believe I know nothing and am a second-rate daughter and wife who simply smiles and agrees on everything. Let them continue to believe that, because in the meantime, I've been working in silence, accumulating proof to back up everything I heard that night. Betrayal always leaves a trail, even if the betrayer believes they have hidden their tracks. And I'm determined to reveal every information they thought was hidden. First, let me tell you about the baby shower. Yes, there was a baby shower. A few days after my last post, my mother contacted me in her typical happy tone, pretending nothing had occurred, as if she hadn't been a part of this tremendous betrayal. She asked if I would host Chloe's baby shower because, to my family, I am essentially a servant, and of course I would be in charge of it. Perhaps if the circumstances were reversed, she would not have asked my sister to host this event. Yes, she wanted me to commemorate the guy who had ruined my marriage and life. The arrogance left me dumbfounded for a moment. But then it occurred to me that I could turn this to my advantage. This could be an excellent time to lay the groundwork for what's coming. Of course, I agreed. I answered, sure, making sure my tone did not reveal my genuine intentions. She was overjoyed, nearly euphoric. "Chloe will be so happy," she remarked. I grinned through the phone, thinking about how thrilled Chloe would be to find out what I had planned for her. But before I made my move, I needed to gather as much as I could. I became nearly obsessed with discovering every last secret, message, and piece of proof, proving exactly what they had done to me. While Ethan slept, I went through his phone, laptop, and even his old backups. At first, I wasn't sure what I'd find. Perhaps they were clever enough to hide their footprints. However, when people believe they have control, they tend to become careless. The first piece of proof appeared in the form of a secret folder on his phone. He thought he was clever by giving it a simple name, but I knew him too well. There were photographs within photos of him with Chloe, and as it turned out, it wasn't a one-time event, but rather an elaborate one. At first glance, some of the images appeared innocent, but others clearly revealed their relationship. My stomach churned as I stared at them, but I didn't stop. Over the next few evenings, I continued digging. Text messages, emails, and archived social media messages. I discovered chats between Chloe and Ethan, some from months ago when they discussed how careful they had to be to keep me from finding out. Their remarks cut like knives, yet they also fueled me. They had been so casual about it, as if I were just an impediment in their path. But the big shock came when I discovered texts between my parents and Chloe. My mother, in particular, had been actively involved in keeping everything a secret. There were discussions about how Maya did not need to know and the significance of protecting Chloe's reputation. Chloe even provided Ethan screenshots of these communications to reassure him that my parents were on their side and didn't have to worry about me finding out. I felt ill to my stomach when reading it. They didn't care that I was their daughter. All they were concerned about was Chloe's reputation. I've saved everything. Every image, communication, and piece of evidence was now safely kept on my devices. I backed everything up just in case. I was not going to rush. I was going to wait for the right opportunity to strike. Maybe at the baby shower, maybe later, but I'd make certain that when everything came crashing down, it would be catastrophic. They wouldn't know what had hit them. Update 2. It's been about a week since my previous post, and I have so much to share, but I'm not sure where to start. Yesterday's events felt like they happened in a dream or possibly a nightmare. It depends on whoever you ask. I spent the entire day at Chloe's baby shower, pretending to be the perfect hostess while hiding my inner turmoil. The facade was meticulously designed. I was the devoted sister, happy daughter, and faithful wife. Everyone was present. Family, friends, and Chloe's spouse. None of them had any idea of the impending chaos. The celebration itself was a lavish affair, and my mother was overjoyed, ensuring everything was perfect for tiny Chloe. My parents had no idea that the true present would be for me, a gift that will ruin the neatly crafted universe they had built. I was acutely conscious of my fast-beating heart. My pulse quickened not from exhilaration, but from the impending mayhem. As the day went, I engaged in pleasant conversations, laughed at superficial jokes, and organized the many baby gifts that stacked up on the table. All the while, I was acutely aware of the ticking time bomb about to blow. I could see Chloe enjoying the attention. Her smile would fade quickly, but the more she believed she had gotten away with it, the better my payback would be. The time comes when they cut the cake. Everyone applauded and praised her, and I felt my heart race even faster as I prepared to give Chloe with my special gift. I told everyone it came from the heart, but deep down, I knew it came from the depths of my anguish. Then I stood up to address the gathering, and the room became quiet. Chloe smiled at me, clearly excited, as she grabbed for the beautifully wrapped box I had worked so hard to offer. Delicate paper and an elaborate bow were all intended to heighten anticipation and make it appear like a very valuable gift, which it was. People flocked around Chloe to get a better look as she started to open it. Inside were printed photographs of her and Ethan in highly compromising circumstances, intimate moments captured in time, the types of photos you wouldn't want your family to view. I had deliberately chosen the most damaging ones, those that proved their betrayal in an obvious and indisputable manner. Chloe's countenance changed from joy to perplexity, then fear. As she examined the contents of the box, the atmosphere in the room changed as individuals recognized what was going on and the significance of the shots to everyone involved. Chloe, me, and my husband. But I wasn't finished yet. As rumors began and people began to question Chloe or me, I pulled back the decorative curtains, displaying enlarged versions of similar images prominently. The truth was now on display for anyone to see, a collection of betrayal documenting the affair that wrecked my life. Chloe's face went white, blood draining from her cheeks, making her appear ghostly. Her hands trembled as she attempted to comprehend what was occurring. My parents automatically tried to interfere, but I refused to be silenced. I took a deep breath and allowed the words to flow. I recounted the entire affair, including how they had helped cover it up and pretended everything was okay. While Chloe betrayed me to my husband, Chloe's husband, absolutely stunned, stormed out of the room, yelling at her, calling her a cheater, and expressing incredulity that she could do all of this. Perhaps it was a similar demonstration and emotion that I experienced as I worked through the entire affair. My parents were speechless, unable to defend their precious child this time. As I revealed the disaster Chloe had made, the universe they had carefully built around her began to crumble. Standing in the crowd, I had a peculiar feeling. A sensation of relief washed over me. Some folks offered me consolation, but I didn't need it at the time because I had completed the necessary tasks. So, I collected my items and walked away. Update 3. 2 weeks have gone since my last update, and I believe the dust has settled sufficiently to relate what remains of my shock and astonishment at the baby shower, as well as the ramifications for all those engaged in the treachery. The night I revealed everything, I left the party as soon as I finished my presentation. I had no desire to communicate with anyone or face the reactions of individuals who had previously been my family. I had no idea what happened next until Chloe's friend, or rather her former friend, contacted me a few days later to ask me a few things. This person, one of Chloe's closest confidants, started the talk with a tone ranging from disbelief to disgust. She told me that after what I had revealed, she had realized Chloe's true personality. In her words, if Chloe could fool her own sister with her husband, who can say she won't do the same to her? The betrayal she observed at the party had made her very skeptical, and she felt she couldn't have a friendship with someone like that. During our talk, she sought suggestions on how to examine her spouse to ensure that he was not concealing anything similar. I instructed her to closely examine his social media communications, text messages, and any interactions on his phone that appeared suspect. I also made it obvious that if she discovered anything major, I would wait for her to share. I thought many of you would want to know as well, but that wasn't everything she told me. Apparently, after I left the party, the venue had devolved into a complete battle zone. When Chloe's in-laws saw what was going on, they screamed and made accusations. Chloe's in-laws were outraged and disappointed, spitting harsh and disrespectful comments at her for what she had done. My father, with what dignity he had left, attempted to interfere to protect his daughter, arguing that Chloe was pregnant and that they shouldn't speak to her in that way. But Chloe's father-in-law didn't mince words, retorting that their lovely daughter was nothing more than a whore. Let's just say he used a more vulgar term. That phrase struck my father like a dagger, and he lunged at Chloe's father-in-law, wanting to settle matters violently. That didn't go so well for him. Chloe's father-in-law delivered a single punch, knocking him to the ground. He did not lose consciousness, but instead lay on the floor, possibly out of embarrassment or dread of suffering another punch. Not only were the men willing to fight, Chloe's mother-in-law, outraged by what had happened, began to verbally assault my mother, who refused to back down, calling Chloe's father-in-law an ape for beating her husband. This caused the other woman to rush at her. The scene was horrific. I heard that Chloe's mother-in-law tugged my mother's hair so hard that they had to be separated. My mother ended up losing a large amount of her hair, and someone even suggested that she might start thinking about getting wigs. Several people attempted to break up the incident before it developed further. I'll admit that deep down I regretted not remaining at the party to see how my present was received. It's the same sensation you get when you miss school on the most important day of the year. But despite my curiosity, I realized it was for the best. I left to keep my head clear and avoid being caught up in guilt and chaos. Surprisingly, Chloe escaped this event bodily unharmed. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because she was pregnant and all there, even the most enraged, had the self-control not to physically kill her. Though there was a good chance the baby she was carrying was my husband's, it wasn't the child's fault that its mother was such a cheater and traitor. Update 4. My ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, has made significant improvement. I served him with the divorce papers as soon as I had them processed. He was not pummeled at the party, and I believe he was clever enough to remain mute and attempt to blend in with the crowd. He stayed silent, keeping his head down as if he wished not to be noticed. Apparently, this tactic worked since he escaped the punch from Chloe's father-in-law, which he deserved more than anyone else, especially since her father-in-law was so eager to administer it. When he arrived home, he discovered that all of his stuff had been tossed out on the grass. I did not leave any of his belongings inside. Everything was on the grass, waiting for him to receive the message. He didn't say anything or knock on the door to speak with me. He simply gathered his belongings and departed. At least he took the hint. We are currently waiting to see what will happen to the house after the divorce is official. In the previous 2 weeks, neither my sister nor my family has sought to contact me, not to apologize nor to vent their rage on me, which does not surprise me. Even though I was the one who was most affected by all of this, aside from my father's humiliation, they lacked the guilt and regret to reach out and apologize. This verifies what I have always suspected. Whatever happens, Chloe will always be their #1 priority. This public betrayal and humiliation, however devastating, do not appear to be enough to cause them to ponder. I've spent my entire life looking for a place in my family, a way to be recognized and loved. But these incidents have taught me that it will never happen. No matter how badly they harmed me or betrayed my trust, I will always be the daughter they can ignore. Update 5. I like that saying, everyone has a plan until they are punched in the face. And this is exactly what happened to my ex-husband. But let me not get ahead of myself and describe what has happened in the last few months. It turns out that Chloe's friend, who I assisted in her inquiry, discovered that her husband was also cheating on her with my sister. As you would expect, she approached him right away. During the dispute, my friend mentioned that my ex was also involved in the situation. What exactly did her husband do? Without saying anything, he drove straight to my sister's house where she was living with my ex because they both assumed the kid she was carrying was his. What comes next is the finest part. The dude punched my ex directly in the face. So, despite avoiding a punch during the party, he eventually received what he deserved. Apparently, my ex chose to sue him for that punch, but I'm not sure what occurred, and frankly, I don't care. My sister's husband left shortly after discovering the situation and filed for divorce. That divorce has yet to be finalized, most likely due to the presence of a baby, which takes longer to complete. My divorce, on the other hand, was finalized approximately a month ago. For those of you who are wondering about the assets, the house we shared was sold and the proceeds were split evenly. We were not required to pay alimony, and because we did not have children, the process was simplified. I believe that the fact that my divorce was resolved fast exacerbated the stress surrounding my sister. Returning to my ex after receiving that punch in the face, he received an emotional blow when he discovered that he might not be the father of the child in my sister's womb. In an ironic turn of events, he chose to leave my sister's residence, unable to stomach the thought that she may be cheating on him. This portion makes me giggle, but it also makes me ponder about the reasoning behind adultery and people like it. How can someone who is willing to cheat on their relationship with someone else be hurt when their partner cheats on them? Perhaps I don't understand the envy in that case since, fortunately, I'm a decent person who has never been compelled to betray somebody in that way. His hypocrisy is so obvious, it's almost laughable. But the situation doesn't end there since there's an unforeseen twist. My sister's baby was born, and as you could expect, a DNA test was performed immediately. Comes out that my ex is not the father. The infant was the child of Chloe's best friend's husband who filed for divorce after learning of the affair. What struck me was that while this man was the father, there was probably another candidate. Knowing my sister and how she has handled things throughout this, I wouldn't be surprised if there were more contenders for paternity. Honestly, given who my dad and sister are, this is not unusual for them. It is simply another Tuesday for them. They don't care how bizarre the scenario becomes since they are so used to living in chaos and drama. And no, neither my parents nor my sister have contacted me since. But this time, and only this time, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's not because they don't value me as a daughter or sister. Perhaps they're too preoccupied with the calamity they've created for themselves. Update 6. First and foremost, let me clarify something, as it appears that some people missed the sarcasm in my previous update when I stated I was giving my family the benefit of the doubt. I was joking. No, I don't believe they've ever actually cared. And even if there wasn't a scandal of this scale, they wouldn't bother to contact you. Moving on, my sister has had to move back in with my parents. Why? Well, the baby's biological father opted not to stay with her. And while he had also been unfaithful, I understood why. Staying with someone as untrustworthy as my sister seems like more of a punishment than a reward. So alone and with a baby, she returned to the only location where she was still warmly welcomed. My parents' house. My sister's divorce resulted in a favorable outcome for my former brother-in-law. The house they shared was sold, and he was not required to pay child support or alimony. I believe this was the best-case scenario for him. Now he can leave this situation with no financial or personal links to my sister. It's as if life gave him a one-way ticket, and I can't imagine a happier ending for him. Chloe's friend likewise concluded her divorce, and things appear to have settled down in terms of peace and counting punches. Despite everything that has happened, it is evident that many of the characters in this story deserve another punch. For the time being, the reality TV shows have come to an end, but the memories will live on in the minds and on the faces of all those involved. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My golden child brother ruined my childhood, then framed and sued me after I married because he liked my wife. Hi Reddit, I need some guidance on a complex position I'm in. Therefore, I'm using a throwaway account. I just want this out there, so please pardon any errors. I'm a 43-year-old man who is the youngest of 2 siblings. To give you the whole picture, I'll attempt to give a chronological account. The golden kid in our family has always been my 45-year-old brother, Michael. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. As a child, for instance, they encouraged him and helped him get better when he received poor grades. But even though I received respectable grades, I was disappointed. For graduating from high school, I got $300 and a pat on the back, while he got a new automobile and a huge celebration. Although we usually did our own thing, Michael wasn't a bad brother. I felt the desire to go out and experience life on my own, but I didn't really protest. I completed my MBA in 2 years while attending a university in a different city. I got a job back in our hometown once I graduated. With the exception of holidays and birthdays, I didn't spend much time with my family throughout this time. My brother barely made it through high school because he wasn't the best student. After he left college, my parents assisted him in opening a modest hardware store. Despite my happiness for him, I kept my attention on myself. I began dating Emily, who was 20 at the time, around this period. We both came from the same city and met in college. After returning home, we cohabitated, got jobs, and concentrated on starting a family. I presented Emily to my family over the 2008 holidays. I felt more loved than I had in years since they were unexpectedly kind and open. But I didn't give it much attention when I saw how much Michael was staring at her during the event. He soon began coming to my flat more often, first once every 4 months and then nearly every day. Since he visited in the evenings when Emily and I were attempting to unwind after work, it became bothersome. Eventually, I had to establish limits, which resulted in a heated argument with my parents. Michael expressed regret and made his trips more manageable by limiting them to weekends once every 2 months. I proposed to Emily in 2011, and we told Emily's family that we were engaged. Michael simply shook my hand and left the little celebration I had planned, but my parents were delighted. After that, he vanished for a few weeks. When we were married in 2013, Michael brought a guest, Laura, to the wedding. 11 months later, in 2014, they were married. I was having a happy marriage. In 2015, Olivia, our first daughter, was born, and in 2017, Chloe, our second. Laura messaged me in 2016 to let me know that Michael's obsession with Emily was the main cause of their breakup. I told her I was sorry and wished her luck in our conversation. I also questioned Emily about her relationships with Laura. She informed me that from the beginning, Laura had been a little aloof and cold with her. In front of my family, I made the decision to confront my brother. I questioned him about why his passion with my wife was ruining his life. The inquiry caught him off guard, and he denied everything. Following a heated fight, I told Michael that he was no longer welcome in my home. Emily and my dad spoke with me and reassured me that Michael was still family, regardless of everything. I made the decision to be friendly for everyone's benefit. We continued living our lives as it appeared that Michael was sincerely trying to improve himself. It was July 25th, and I can still clearly recall the day in 2018. While my wife took our children to see their grandparents, I was running a number of errands. My father called me after lunch and asked me to come over to their place. He sounded irate, and I could feel the tension. When I got there were some members of my extended family there, as well as my parents who were attempting to comfort my wife who was crying. They accused me of assaulting a girl at a party weeks prior and sending her threatening texts instructing her not to report it, which caught me off guard when I inquired about what had transpired. I had known Amanda, the girl in question, back in high school. I occasionally hung out with a wider group of friends, including her. Amanda claimed that I had attacked her after following her to her car following a club party. Along with her allegation, she sent screenshots of an alleged chat with my wife as proof. I was startled and perplexed. My parents told me they never wanted to see me again after my father gave me a heavy slap across the face. Emily was enraged and said we were finished. No one paid attention to my attempts to defend myself and show that I had done nothing of the like. I was told that Emily and the children would not come back to me, and I was essentially thrown out of the house. In addition, my father promised to come to my flat and get their possessions. I appealed with them to change their minds. When my father visited the residence, ignoring me, he packed some bags and warned me not to get in touch with them ever again. In addition, he threatened to turn me over to the police himself if I did. By the evening, Michael had posted Amanda's narrative and the screenshots to our WhatsApp group for our extended family. I was unanimously expelled from the organization shortly after. Friends from my group called me over the course of the following few days to express their displeasure and advise me not to get in touch with them ever again. I was a complete disaster at this time. I was unable to work, eat, or sleep. My supervisor brought me in for a talk after hearing the rumors. He told me to leave the company to preserve my record. Even though he couldn't do anything about the rumors without the police becoming involved, he threatened to fire me without severance and with a damaged record if the police were involved. A few days later, I reluctantly accepted his recommendation and resigned. I was still living in agony in the middle of August when I got 2 court documents: Emily's divorce papers and a letter of disownment from my family. When I went to my parents' house in my drunken and desperate state, Michael confronted me. I was assailed by him, who called me a disgrace to the family and said that my disownment was a wonderful thing. I could hardly stand and had blood running down my face by the time he was finished. Emily and my dad looked on from a distance but took no action. I eventually sat there in tears, realizing that I had lost everyone and all I knew. I remained cooped up in my flat while the divorce was being processed. The divorce proceeded as amicably as possible given the situation. I didn't have to pay child support or alimony because I was unemployed, and my ex-parents said they would take care of the kids. Officially, I was divorced by January 2019. It was really difficult for me to try to put my life back together. I pondered confronting Amanda during this period, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it may make things worse. Even without sufficient proof, a single phone call may land me in jail for 5 to 6 years due to rules in my nation that prioritize women. I had a serious injury in February 2019 and had to recuperate for roughly 5 weeks. Emily was still my emergency number. When the medical staff called, no one came to see how I was doing, and she hung up. I had to get back on my feet if only to keep a roof over my head. After realizing that I had wasted a large amount of my funds, I sold all of my furniture, settled my outstanding rent, and made the decision to start over in a new city. After realizing I couldn't reconstruct my life in the same location, I started looking for a job after moving 2 hours away, but I was unsuccessful. I drank too much throughout this time, and I had constant thoughts of taking my own life for months. I grew accustomed to waking up from dreams in a cold sweat. I suddenly ran across David, a former college classmate, for months later. Back then, David was the quiet boy who rarely spoke to others. Seeing him after all these years was unexpected. He called my name after spotting me in a crowd. After exchanging greetings, we briefly discussed our lives. I informed him that I was seeking employment in the city. David stated that he had recently resigned from his position and intended to launch his own management consulting business. Later that day, he asked me out for a drink, and after we talked about our careers, he gave me a job offer. He claimed that he required some knowledgeable individuals. I nodded, believing that in order to keep my thoughts busy, I needed to immerse myself in my task. But before making a commitment, I told him I wanted to meet with his staff and talk more about it. David introduced me to another team member, Mark, 2 days later. He clarified that going forward, it will just be the 3 of us. I shook hands with Mark and explained that I had something to impart before we could continue. I revealed everything. My divorce, my disownment, the allegations, and how I had lost everything. I was crying as I described what had happened. David and Mark sympathized with me and told me there wouldn't be any problems as long as I didn't have any criminal history. I clarified that I had never been visited or charged by the police. David stated he would have a thorough background check done just to be sure. I agreed and fully grasped his point of view. I was living in a dilapidated rental at the time in order to save money in case things didn't work out. I waited patiently for 2 weeks while still looking for work elsewhere. David called me 2 weeks later and we got together. That day, he welcomed me to the team and assured me that there were no accusations against me. Following that, I pushed myself into my work and, at Derek's suggestion, began going to therapy sessions. In addition, I joined a gym and used the punching bag to release a lot of my frustrations, increasing my weight from an average of 77 kilograms to over 105 kilograms. Since Derek was about Michael's age, we became gym pals, and I began to regard him as an older brother. I had regained a great deal of control over my life by the end of 2019. As the consultancy business flourished, revenue began to flow in. I started to recover, at least somewhat. After renting a lovely apartment in a respectable area, I understood that in order to truly move on, I had to take action. With his and his parents' approval, I went to court and formally changed my last name to Derek's. They welcomed me into many of their family events since they thought I was a wonderful guy. In an attempt to show my appreciation for their generosity and encouragement, I even acted as Derek's best man at his wedding. I made another attempt at dating, but it was unsuccessful because of my unresolved emotional issues, until I met Kim in 2020. Kim, 29, has half Italian and half Korean ancestry. At a coffee shop where I frequently got coffee and occasionally stopped to sit, I first noticed her. Derek once saw her staring at me and urged me to ask her out. Even though at first we simply spoke for orders, she worked behind the counter. Later that day, after some hesitation, I asked her for drinks. She said she wanted to see me again after our wonderful evening, but I thought it would end like the dates I've had before, when I informed them about my background and they left. When someone left after hearing my story, I never held them responsible. I made the decision to share my background with Kim during our lunch date on our second date. Before I proceeded, I wanted her to be fully informed. I talked about the charges, the disavowal, and my difficulties letting go. Although she was caught off guard, she listened to me as I told her that I would never consider harming somebody in that way. Before choosing to keep dating me, I advised her to understand what she was getting into. Kim contacted a few days later and requested a meeting. She told me she trusted me and wanted to try our connection. When we first met at the coffee shop where she worked, I couldn't think someone could welcome me in spite of everything, so I was doubtful and even started crying. We took our relationship seriously and found great pleasure in each other's presence. I felt like I was finally getting well for the first time. I even traveled to Europe with Kim for my first vacation in years, and it was incredible. We maintained continuous phone and FaceTime communication during the 2021 epidemic. Kim asked if she could live with me when things started to settle down in the second half of the year. I concurred because she was having trouble finding employment when her position at the coffee business terminated. I recommended that Kim look into launching a food business because she was an amazing chef. With her parents' help, Kim was able to establish a cloud kitchen by the middle of 2022 and start delivering food to the surrounding areas. Our lives were going well together, even though I was still dealing with some mental problems. I no longer had suicide ideas, but sometimes the dreams persisted. Kim declared her pregnancy in February 2024. I experienced a wide range of feelings, including grief for the family I had lost, dread of beginning over, and immense delight. Emotionally, I was all over the place. After Kim reassured me, we eventually dozed off together. Kim was ecstatic when I proposed to her shortly after. My life seemed to be finally heading in the direction of stability and serenity. Preparations were underway as we decided on a mid-June wedding date. I genuinely thought that things were finally improving. I got a call at the end of May from an unidentified number. Someone was crying when I responded. "Hello, this is Amanda," she said. I recognized her voice right away and hung up in a fit of rage. My companion, Kim, saw my look and approached me with worry. I struggled to contain my anger and tears as I described who it was. Kim picked up the phone and put it on speaker when it called again. The man who answered the phone identified himself as Amanda's fiancé. Amanda wanted to be honest about what had happened in the past, explained with tears in her eyes. Amanda called and apologized repeatedly. I was too emotional to reply, so Kim spoke most of the time. "They will call back later," she told Amanda's fiancé. Kim called Derek to come over as soon as the call was over. Derek calmly listened to Kim's explanation of the circumstances. He hugged me and suggested that we set up a meeting at a lawyer's office so that Amanda's confession could be recorded in case it was ever needed. After I called my lawyer and told him everything, he set up a meeting at his office 3 days after I informed Amanda over the phone. We met at the attorney's office. Amanda appeared completely defeated, and the only person beside her was her fiancé. My lawyer mediated the encounter, which was captured on camera. Kim supported me by sitting next to me. Amanda started going into great detail about what had transpired. The main point is this. My brother Michael and Amanda were having an affair in secret in 2016. The whole scheme to frame me was planned by Michael. He purchased a new phone, took my profile photo from WhatsApp, and used it to fabricate screenshots of my chats with Amanda. Amanda loved him and would do anything for him, so she agreed to the plan. I wavered between tears and fury as Amanda told me all about it. I genuinely believe that I may have faced assault charges if Kim hadn't been present. Even though my lawyer tried to be kind, Kim, who was angry and probably made worse by her pregnancy, gave Amanda vicious verbal abuse. I fought back tears and rage as I questioned them why they were coming forward to tell me this. Kim also turned to Amanda's fiancé and warned him, "If you still marry this human garbage, then you deserve whatever happens." Mark, Amanda's fiancé, clarified that while they were intoxicated a few weeks prior, Amanda blurted out that she had assisted an ex in ruining a marriage. She eventually came clean after he pressed and questioned her about it repeatedly. If Amanda desired harmony in her life, Mark stressed that she had to take responsibility for her faults. After assisting Michael, Amanda explained, he grew aloof and chilly toward her and ended their relationship 6 months later. She had spent a lot of time in therapy trying to deal with her guilt, but she was too afraid to come clean even though she felt awful. My lawyer intervened after everything was explained and recommended a 20-minute respite before proceeding. My lawyer went over my alternatives while Amanda and Mark went out. He clarified that I had sufficient proof to file defamation lawsuits against Michael and Amanda. Even though I was furious, I made the decision that this would not interfere with my impending wedding. In order to prevent causing trouble with my ex-family, I informed my lawyer that I would handle this after the wedding and told Amanda not to notify anybody else. Kim gave me a hug after the meeting and told me that she trusted her gut and that she felt relieved. I felt the same way she did. David and Derek were both my best men at our tiny wedding, and we then traveled throughout Europe for 3 weeks on our honeymoon. We both had an incredible time. During the honeymoon, I was able to enjoy myself, but the nightmares increased in frequency. Kim was there for me no matter what. I talked to my therapist about these emotions, and she said that in order to get closure, I would eventually have to face my former family. After giving it some thought, I made the decision to get in touch with Amanda once more. In July, I offered her a means of avoiding financial catastrophe, but I also informed her that I intended to pursue legal action in light of her comments. I told her to go to Emily's office by herself and tell Emily what she had told us at the lawyer's office. During the talk, Amanda broke down in tears and disclosed that Mark had abandoned her. Although I hoped I could feel sorry for her, I informed her that I couldn't. I also mentioned that my brother was the target of karma, which had finally come up with her. It was a few days later that Emily texted me. I had always emailed her birthday greetings and wishes on our daughter's birthdays and holidays. Even though I was blocked, I hadn't heard from her in 8 years until this communication. She wanted to speak with me. I told her I would give her a call in a few hours because I didn't want to have this chat by myself. With Kim by my side, I went home and made the call. I could hear Emily crying violently as soon as she picked up the phone. Once she had calmed down, she apologized and said how awful she felt. I was able to keep my cool and tell her how much it stung to know that she didn't think highly of me because she had fallen so readily into Michael's trap. I inquired about my girls with Emily. They were doing great, she remarked. She said it was 2 days ago when I inquired when she had met Amanda. She acknowledged that it took her a long time to realize how swiftly she had cut off contact with me and how mistaken she had been. She alerted my ex-parents to Amanda's revelation right away, and they were equally as shocked. They all wanted to get in touch with me, but Emily insisted on apologizing first. I informed her that her actions were really hurtful. "What about the golden child, Michael?" I asked her. "He was expelled from the residence," she disclosed. That made me laugh. Emily then revealed another shocking detail. Michael had been her support system at that period, and she had married him a year after our divorce was official. Everything suddenly made sense. It appeared that Michael had never really moved on from her. She also revealed to me that she and him had a daughter. Following these disclosures, I outlined my conditions. In order for Emily to comprehend the type of guy Michael was, I first advised her to contact my extended family and tell them about all he had done. Second, I made it clear that while I intended to co-parent my 2 kids, I had no plans to make amends with her beyond what was required for our daughters. Third, I told her that I wanted to face my ex-parents face-to-face and that I would text her the time and date of our meeting. Knowing that Kim's pregnancy may have caused her emotions to be all over the place, I gave her a hug after our talk. Kim wept for us both, but I controlled my own feelings. We dozed off while holding each other. My phone was off when I woke up the following morning. I discovered a deluge of notifications after charging it, including hundreds of messages and more than 150 missed calls. Additionally, I was added back to the family group chat where everyone was expressing regret. Messages from former friends also arrived throughout the course of the following few days, apologizing for making snap judgments. All I could say in response to the family group was that I was an outsider now and would stay that way because I had been disowned nearly a decade earlier. I informed them that my terms and timing, not theirs, would determine whether or not I forgave them. I quickly exited and asked not to be added back to the group. A few relatives attempted to criticize me, expressing their disappointment with my response. After being so eager to assume the worst, I shut them down by telling them they had no right to criticize me. I instructed them not to get in touch with me until I first contacted them. After a few weeks, I gave Emily a call and asked her to come over for the weekend so I could have a good look at my girls. As resolute and fierce as ever, Kim demanded to meet her stepdaughters as well. She was resolute despite our arguments, which usually involved my attempts to persuade her to take care of herself due to the pregnancy. After a while, I gave in. At a public park, we first met. Despite her somewhat unkempt appearance, Emily had tried to look professional for the meeting. I got to see Olivia and Chloe for the first time in 8 years. They were so much bigger now. Since I had been restricted from all social media and communication channels, my phone was the only place I had any recollection of them. Emily came to me in tears and attempted to give me a hug, but I stopped her by raising both of my hands. Afterward, I presented her to Kim as my spouse. In the park, she collapsed into a weeping mess. We sat down close by as Kim stepped up to console her. I sobbed while giving both of my girls firm embraces. Since they had always known Michael as their father, my daughters were naturally conflicted when they learned about me for the first time, but seeing me triggered a flood of feelings. There was a great deal of talking and crying. By nightfall, Emily and I were exchanging life updates. She disclosed that because he had provided for her at that period, she had married Michael a year after our divorce was official. For the first few years, he had looked after her and the girls, but everything finally broke apart. Michael was forced to close his landscaping firm completely due to the epidemic, and it never turned a profit. Even though his parents were now using their funds to make ends meet, Michael resisted starting anything new. Additionally, Emily informed me that she was divorcing Michael because she could no longer bear to see him. It had nothing to do with me, but I told her she could do whatever she wanted. I outlined my goals for the future in order to aid in our collective healing. I first requested that Olivia and Chloe join me for family therapy sessions. It was time to make amends for the loss of their biological father. Second, I wanted to spend weekends with Kim and be involved in their life, but I told them this would have to wait until after the baby was born because I needed to spend the time I had left with the new baby. Finally, Emily said my parents wanted to get in touch with me. They are not my parents, I told her. And I had the letter they sent with the divorce papers as proof that they had disowned me. Nevertheless, Kim and Emily both urged me to meet them, claiming it could provide me some closure. I reluctantly consented and informed Emily that I would choose the time and location of the meeting. In order to spend more time with my girls, I requested Emily to spend the night in the city and made reservations for her at a hotel. We spent Sunday together the following day, taking in the sights of the city and having a good time. Olivia and Chloe both hugged me tightly before I left, and I told them I would see them the next week. I informed Emily that I would come to the girls' family therapy sessions, saving her the trouble of driving them. We had a successful initial introductory session, and my therapist recommended a counselor in their city. The therapist told me that Olivia and Chloe would eventually have to find out what my ex-brother Michael had done. I told her it would happen eventually, but I still consented. The therapist also recommended that I share my tale here and look for other viewpoints on my circumstances. To be honest, I might not have progressed this far if Derek hadn't pushed me. What should I do next? That is the question I have for you. Even though I call my ex-parents, I still harbor feelings and emotions for them that I intend to address eventually. I don't know how to interpret that or whether it makes sense. How do I handle Michael? Should I file a defamation lawsuit against him, even though I doubt I'll ever want to see his face again? I'm worried that anything I do to him could have a detrimental effect on my ex's daughter, as I know he has one. I will do my best to answer any inquiries you may have. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My sister accused my husband of an affair, and my parents believed her. 2 years later, her fiancé exposed her lies and cheating. My sister told my parents that my husband had an affair with her, and they believed her. 2 years later, her fiancé discovered she was cheating and that she had made up the entire narrative. It's difficult to know where to begin, but I feel compelled to get this off my chest and maybe find some clarity. I apologize if this comes across as rambling. There is so much to unpack. Hopefully, you people can point me in the correct way because I'm at a loss. I am 30 years old and have been married to the love of my life, Jake, 34, for 8 beautiful years. We have 2 lovely children, a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old son. Life was very close to perfect. We had a comfortable home, a consistent schedule, and a profound bond that I believed was unbreakable. Our days were filled with the normal ups and downs of family life, but I couldn't have been happier. But everything changed 2 years ago, thanks to my older sister, Lily. Lily, who is also 34, began on a similar route to mine, but our lives have taken completely different twists, to put it mildly. Her relationship history has been fraught with difficulties. She had been alone for a long time, and there was a very good reason for it. As much as it pains me to admit it, Lily is a bit of a red flag in terms of relationships. Her actions can only be described as those of a neurotic narcissist. She has a history of destroying her relationships, frequently driving people away with her unstable and deceptive behavior. Lily's relationships always seem to start out well, but they never last. She has a habit of becoming very intense too quickly, and then things begin to unravel. I've seen it happen several times. She'll meet someone, they'll begin dating, and then she'll start picking fights over little matters or become so possessive that the guy feels suffocated. Soon enough, it's over, and she's left wondering why she can't find someone who will remain around. It's difficult to witness, especially since Lily frequently takes her emotions out on me. She would come over to my apartment and complain about not being able to find a man like Jake. There was clearly a great deal of resentment. She'd say things like, "You found a man. Why can't I find somebody like Jake?" I tried not to take offense since I knew she was in a horrible place, but it was difficult not to feel like her words were aimed at me. Despite everything, I still love my sister. I'd always hoped she'd find the man of her dreams and be happy. I even tried to set her up with Jake's friend once, thinking they'd make a wonderful match, but Lily's unusual and unsettling actions rapidly put a stop to that notion. She was so severe and dominating that I recognized it wasn't worth jeopardizing our friendship for her. Despite all of this, I remained hopeful that Lily would finally find happiness. Unfortunately, it was evident that Lily did not feel the same way about me. Jake and I had a big family cookout at our parents' house 2 years ago to celebrate our 6th wedding anniversary. It had been a while since the entire family had gotten together, so everyone was having a great time. Our children were playing with their relatives, and the air was full of laughter and happiness. It was one of those rare moments when everything seemed perfect, and I was surrounded by the people I cared about the most. As the evening progressed, Lily took me aside. At first, I assumed she was going to make me a heartfelt anniversary wish. She complimented me, and I thanked her, shocked at her genuine tone. I asked her what she'd been up to lately, and because I knew she had a new boyfriend, I also questioned about that. But instead of the pleasant conversation I expected, Lily's tone shifted. She gazed at me with peculiar intensity, and the next words caught me completely off guard. She stated that after Jake and I married, they secretly had an affair for a period. At first, I thought it was a weird joke and chuckled, but Lily was dead serious. She claimed that after the wedding, Jake continued texting her, and what began as benign getting-to-know-you exchanges quickly evolved into intense emotional conversations. According to Lily, Jake told her that he and I were constantly fighting and bickering about minor issues. She claimed he'd ask if they might meet, which is when the affair allegedly began. Her statements made me feel ill. I couldn't believe Jake, who had always been committed to me and our family, would be unfaithful. Lily explained that she had kept this a secret all along but could no longer pretend. The way she delivered it, so quietly and confidently, shook me to my core more than the actual news. I briefly considered all of the possible options. Did Jake actually cheat on me and with my own sister? Were we supposed to be separated now? How about the kids? It took me a while to process my ideas, but then I asked Lily if she had any proof that Jake couldn't get away with lying. That is where she faltered. Lily said she had a lot of evidence, but as her sister, I should believe her with or without it. That's when I realized Lily was lying. She could trick Mom and Dad, but I had been watching her for years. I could immediately detect when she was lying. She burst into tears when she realized I could be onto her. Then came her lecture, which included comments like, "I cannot believe you don't trust me," and "I told you for your own good." Lily then went on to tell our parents the same tale. Soon, all of our friends and family surrounded us, and Lily began shouting at Jake about how he had cheated on me with her. She even alleged that despite her refusal to participate, he blackmailed her. My hubby was just as perplexed as I was. At first, he assumed this was an unfunny joke. However, when Lily began screaming like crazy in front of everyone, the situation became quite serious. I hoped my folks would assist me with damage control. After all, even if Lily's narrative were accurate, I would have been crushed. To my amazement, my parents sided with Lily without regard for our circumstances. Dad screamed at Jake, accusing him of playing with Lily's feelings. I felt abandoned. My own sister confessed to me that she had an affair with my husband of 6 years, even though I knew that wasn't true. No wife enjoys hearing this type of thing. Furthermore, if her narrative was true, my father was more concerned with Lily's feelings than my own, a wife and mother who would have lost her husband. When we got home that day, Jake and I talked about everything. I trusted my husband and knew he would never betray me. Before you think I'm gullible, let me warn you that Lily has a history of lying. She has previously wrecked countless relationships with petty lies. In truth, Jake's pal ended their relationship because she accused him of cheating on her at random. She would set her own belongings throughout the apartment and then ask him about if he had brought any other girls. This would lead to screaming bouts, and when he was fatigued, Mom would tell him it was just a test. The situation with us simply confirmed this was a trend for Lily, so I chose to believe my husband. The next days were the worst of my life. My parents refused to hear our side of the tale, preferring to trust Lily's version without any evidence. Our previously close-knit family was broken. Jake and I found ourselves alone, and the atmosphere at family gatherings grew unpleasant. My parents treated me with distrust, while Jake was completely ignored. Lily, on the other hand, appeared to delight in the turmoil she had caused. She played the victim, taking up the attention and pity of everyone around her. It was as if she relished witnessing the devastation she had inflicted in my life. The more I attempted to defend myself and Jake, the more she distorted the story to portray us as monsters. I attempted to contact my parents to explain that there was no proof of Lily's assertions, but it was ineffective. They'd made up their minds, and their commitment to Lily was solid. Mom even accused me of being in denial and choosing Jake above my own sister, which shattered my heart. I couldn't comprehend how they could so easily abandon me, how they could blindly believe Lily's falsehoods. Eventually, the tension reached its breaking point. Jake and I made the difficult decision to detach ourselves from my family for our own mental health and the sake of our children's well-being. It was a difficult decision, but we couldn't keep living in the shadow of such a painful falsehood. This eventually became our new normal. As I mentioned, it was difficult but not impossible. I recognized that I didn't need my parents' approval for everything in my life, and if they wanted to believe Lily's lie, then so be it. But just when I thought the drama was over, something happened to shake things up again. I came across a post on Facebook unexpectedly, and guess what? Lily became engaged. She had shared a series of photos with her new fiancé, a man named Mark, along with a lengthy, heartfelt caption about how she had met the love of her life. She told how Mark entered her life at what she believed was the most difficult time she had ever experienced. A time of pain and betrayal. Ironic, eh? Reading those sentences caused my stomach to churn. The hypocrisy was enraging. Lily had portrayed herself as a victim, employing the same lies she had spoken to elicit compassion and admiration from our extended family and friends. As I browsed through the comments, I noticed that many of our family, who had largely supported her during the turmoil, were praising her and extending their support. Some even made snide, passive-aggressive statements addressed directly at me, such as, "Good for you for getting past that toxicity. You do not need that in your life." It was infuriating. These folks had no idea what had transpired, yet they were ready to congratulate Lily on her alleged courage and tenacity. I felt a similar sensation of betrayal, not only from Lily but from the entire family, which had decided to believe her falsehoods without questioning it. It felt as if they had entirely eliminated me from their life while continuing to support someone who had only caused grief and destruction. What concerned me even more was Lily's engagement to a man who had no notion what kind of person she was. I couldn't help but feel sad for Mark, knowing that he was being deceived by the same lies that had destroyed my family. I wondered whether Lily had ever told him the truth about what she had done, or if she had continued to weave her web of deception to trap him as well. I was tempted to reach out to Mark and warn him about Lily's true personality, but I immediately realized that it was not my place to meddle with their relationship. Mark would have to discover the truth on his own, just like I did. Still, I couldn't ignore the sense of dread that came with knowing Lily was once again manipulating those around her for her personal gain. In the days that followed, I tried to get the news of Lily's engagement out of my mind, but it was difficult. Suddenly, I began to notice a series of missed calls from an unknown number. I ignored it at first because I assumed it was spam, but the calls kept coming. I didn't have time to pick up because I was so busy with work and kids. Finally, during a break at work, I decided to respond. On the other end of the line, I was welcomed by a screaming Lily. She hurled every insult and slur she could think of at me. It was like a torrent of rage, unfiltered and untamed. I tried to ask her what was going on, but she refused to let me speak. After what seemed like an eternity of listening to her rant, I was finally able to convince her to pause long enough to explain what had happened and why she was so angry. There was a little hush on the other end before she screamed, "How could you claim to be innocent after what you've done?" Before I could react, she hung up. I was left in a trance, trying to make sense of what had just occurred. My mind was spinning with options, but none made sense. What could I have done to make Lily so angry? I had stayed out of her life, given her the privacy she clearly desired, and done nothing to provoke her. I could only think of one person who might have some insight into this situation. My Uncle Tom. He was one of the few family members I still communicated with, and he was always a voice of reason in the midst of the insanity. I called him, thinking he could shed some light on the situation. Uncle Tom did not disappoint. When I recounted what had transpired, he revealed what Lily had cleverly left out. Apparently, her fiancé, Mark, had called off the engagement. What's the reason? He had discovered the alleged affair between Lily and Jake through family rumors. Mark, being the wonderful guy he was, had been looking into a disagreement he had spotted between Lily and myself. When Mark found out about the affair, he was naturally outraged. The trouble was that he didn't realize it was all a lie, a fiction Lily cooked up to seek attention and sympathy. Things took an even more dramatic turn. Just before the engagement was called off, Mark, Lily's fiancé, had sensed that something was wrong with their relationship. Lily's unpredictable conduct had caused some concerns for him, and he couldn't escape the suspicion that there was more to the story. Mark, motivated by his suspicions, decided to check Lily's phone. What he discovered shocked everyone. Lily had been cheating on him. She'd been meeting up with a guy she met on a dating app, and their interactions weren't simply casual chatter. Mark, who was wealthy and seemed ideal in Lily's eyes, was someone she refused to lose. Lily had no choice but to come clean. She admitted to Mark that she had no affair with Jake and that the entire thing was made up. But rather than saving her relationship, her confession backfired. She did not deny having discussions with the guy on the dating app. Mark was horrified, not only by the affair but also by the deception and the lengths Lily had gone to in order to carry it out. It presented Lily in an even more negative light, and Mark wanted nothing to do with her after that. After Mark called off the engagement, Lily's life began to disintegrate. Her lies were now public knowledge, and those who had previously backed her began to distance themselves. The folks who had previously believed her story about Jake and me now questioned everything. Their caustic remarks and supportive letters faded when they discovered the extent of Lily's deception. My parents, who had so easily chosen her side 2 years ago, were left stunned by the truth. Despite the remorse and sorrow I feel for my sister, I know that the best thing for my family right now is to stay away from all of this toxic drama. We've gone through enough, and now I need to focus on protecting my husband, children, and myself from future danger. I'm happy for the clarity that has resulted from all of this, even if it has been extremely hard to achieve. I'd also like to thank everyone who read my article and offered their support and suggestions. It's been a challenging trip, but strangers' compassion and understanding have helped make it bearable. I am grateful to you all for allowing me to see things more clearly and giving me the courage to do what is best for my family. Update 2. Hello everyone. The last week has been quite stressful, so my family and I decided to take a much-needed mini-vacation. It was a nice opportunity for us to clear our heads and refocus on each other after what had happened. I also spent some time reading over all of your comments on my prior postings, and I just wanted to say thank you. Your insights and encouragement have really improved my understanding of the situation. One thing that really struck me was the number of comments about Lily's weird fixation with my husband, Jake. Now that you've brought it to my attention, I see that there were always warning flags, but I just didn't notice them at the time. When Jake and I first started dating, Lily had a lot to say, more than I expected. She would always call him brilliant and dashing, which looked like innocent praise, but they were frequently followed by comments that now seem strange, such as how I got him or how he was so out of my league. I dismissed it as her typical mocking, but thinking back, there could have been more to it. Anyway, going on, I must say that my parents have not ceased attempting to reach us. They've called and texted us hundreds of times, and while I'm still unhappy about what happened, I've decided to allow them to come visit us. I understand that their primary motivation is to visit the children, and I accepted that. After all, I've decided that I would not deprive my children of their grandparents, even if I am not ready to fully reconcile with them myself. While my parents may not have been the best at supporting me, they have always been loving grandparents, and my children adore them. The visit will be difficult, and I'm still unsure how I'll react to seeing them face to face after everything that has transpired. But I'm prepared to try for the sake of my children. I will create limits and preserve my own mental health, but I cannot ignore the attachment they have with their grandparents. Hopefully, this visit will provide some clarity on how to go from here. Thank you again for all of your help and suggestions. I'll keep you posted on how things progress. Update 3. Hello everyone. I hope you are doing better. I wanted to provide an update on how things have been since my last post. My parents did come to visit us, and while I was concerned about how it would go, I have to admit it went better than I imagined. Things were awkward at first, as I expected, but my children immediately broke the ice. They were overjoyed to see their grandparents again, and their enthusiasm helped to alleviate the tension in the room. It was evident that they missed them as much as my parents did. As we settled in, the kids innocently asked where Aunt Lily was. It was a question I expected to come up at some point, and it elicited an uncomfortable stillness. We all avoided the subject at the moment, attempting to keep the atmosphere light. Later, while the kids were busy, I decided to ask my parents directly where she was. They informed me Lily had returned to their home after a long absence and wanted to apologize to me. I found it difficult to take it seriously. However, after everything she'd done, an apology seemed pointless. Furthermore, Mark, her ex-fiancé, deserved the most sincere apologies after everything she had put him through. I advised that instead of wasting time apologizing, they consider enrolling her in treatment. The way she acted, lying so brazenly and destructively, was not a simple mistake. She acted like a habitual liar, and at times it appeared she was on the verge of being labeled a psychopath. Some may even claim she is one. If she is to heal from this condition, she must seek expert help. Interestingly, Jake and Mark have developed an unexpected bond throughout this process. They began hanging together and learned that they had many common interests. Jake keeps Mark informed about what's going on with us, and it's been great to see them both support each other in various ways. Mark, being the mature individual that he is, has begun to move on with his life. He did not deserve what he went through, but as humans, all we can do is move on and attempt to find peace. Overall, I believe we are on the route to a resolution. Things will never be the same, but I am hopeful that they can improve. If the world works in our favor, we may not be able to return to the way things were, but we may be able to reach a satisfactory point, one in which we can reestablish some trust and move forward without the weight of the past holding us back. We've learned the value of open communication, the perils of leaping to conclusions, and the strength of forgiveness, both giving and receiving it. While we are not completely recovered yet, we believe we are on the right track. Thank you again, Reddit, for your encouragement and guidance at this difficult time. Your opinions have been important in guiding us through this challenging circumstance. We'll continue to take things one day at a time, focusing on our mental health and our children's well-being as we move forward. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I'm tired of my ex-husband's wife wanting to be friends with me just because he cheated on both of us. I don't understand why I'm in this situation, and honestly, I'm frustrated because even my own family tells me I'm the bad one here. I just need to vent, and I don't need any advice or somebody telling me, do this. I think you should tell her this. I would write her this. Or this. More than 17 years ago, my ex-husband cheated on me with a woman I didn't know. But she knew me. He left me for her. Our only daughter was a baby, and I just moved on with my life. I'm never going to fight for a man who makes immature decisions without first thinking about the consequences. He married that woman. I went on with my life, preferring to have healthy co-parenting for my daughter. He never showed remorse, and he had even told me that ours was always a mistake and that woman was the love of his life. That helped me to realize that he's a total dick, and I don't need a man like that in my life. Now he cheated on her, and for some reason, this woman, who always had a really cold and distant relationship with me, is insisting on trying to talk with me every day. I found out about the infidelity from my daughter, who wasn't affected by that, so I didn't think too much about it. The only thing that worried me was to know if he was going to be able to continue having our daughter at his house on weekends as always. But his wife started sending me messages explaining what happened when I never asked her that. In the past, I only spoke to her if her husband didn't answer my text to ask something about my daughter. It's obvious that she needs to talk about it. It doesn't matter if I answer dryly because she sends me long audio talking about it anyway. I mean, I understand that she needs to talk about her husband's infidelity and blah, but why me? I don't want to be rude, but I don't care how she or he feels. In one of her audios, she says, "You know how I feel now. Like, I guess, but that was 17 years ago. It's not the same, and if I'm being 100% honest, she can't compare herself to me at all. A woman who has just given birth, to whom her husband tells her that he has been cheating on her for a long time with another woman who is not boring in bed and does know how to value him, versus a woman who always knew that her husband is unfaithful and decided to marry him anyway. Anyway, I've tried to ignore her as much as I can, but even when I talk to my family or friends about this, almost all of them told me things like, "Oh, but she must feel lonely. But she wasn't to blame for being the other one. I think you should be more empathetic. We all need someone to talk to." Or my favorite one, "She's not to blame for him being a cheater. You should understand her because she needs help." I understand that she is not to blame and he's the cheater, but she, a totally adult woman at that time, decided to marry a man she knew was sleeping with her while his wife was pregnant. So why should I now carry the weight of helping her when she never helped me by telling me, "Hey, your husband slept with me, and that's really shitty because he's married to you?" Or, "That's what I'd do if a married man flirts with me." Now, if she didn't do any of that, then why is it my duty as a feminist to force myself to be her friend? It doesn't make sense, and the worst thing is that almost all the women around me tell me that I should help her and be her ear when I don't want to feel empathy for her or for him. I think she and he knew very well what they were getting into. I don't understand why I should be her free therapist now. Being cheated on is not my whole personality. I don't need to talk about that 24/7 with her. I just chose to ignore her, and that's what I'm going to continue doing because I just don't care how she feels, even if I'm a bad feminist for not feeling empathy. Sorry, my first language is Spanish, and I wrote everything pretty annoyed. Edit. No, I can't block her because she's still living with him, and I need to have her contact me in case of an emergency with my daughter. And honestly, it's weird to have so many comments and even private messages from people wanting to tell me what I should send to her and even writing what I feel. I'm sorry, but there's no way I'm going to use the message of a stranger who doesn't know how I feel or the whole situation to say something to someone. I feel like a lot of people in the comments are reflecting their own traumas. Update. Hi, it's been a while since I posted, and I just wanted to give a little update for people who were worried. First of all, my mother was a lover for a long time when I was a teenager. Plus, during my adulthood, their relationship lasted long years until he died. I think his wife never found out about his affair. That's why my mom manipulates me so much into not judging my ex's wife, because no one chooses who to fall in love with. My mother always reflected herself on that woman, and that's why she said that my ex-husband and his lover, now wife, are soulmates, and I shouldn't get in the way. I was very young at the time. I could only lean on my mother for a little support, and, well, narcissists always catch vulnerable people. Nowadays, I don't have much contact with her, but my daughter spends time with my family. And about my friends, well, I am a feminist activist, and opinions regarding lovers are divided because most of them are on the liberal side. Most of the time, it's seen as something misogynistic to judge them because they are single women, and the man is the one we should blame. Plus, we need to be Soras with other girls, so I expected that reaction from most of them. I agree with that in most cases, but not in this one. I can feel empathy when the woman did not know or when she is a minor being groomed, But in this case, I do not feel any pity because she knew well what she was doing. Women can also be mean and cruel. Women can also choose to be the bad guys in the story without someone manipulating us because we are not weak, and my ex's wife is that kind of woman. No one manipulated her into doing anything. I'm sorry that explanation was perhaps unnecessary, but there were people who didn't understand my family's and friends' behavior, and honestly, it feels good to vent. I have spoken with my ex's wife because honestly, a few days ago I had a really stressful day, and the last thing I needed was to see her messages in my WhatsApp, so I just exploded. I planned to continue ignoring her, but that day I was upset about things about my work, and I ended up telling her everything. I sent her an audio telling her that I'm not interested in her life or in the fact she's suffering. I told her that I am not her friend, nor am I interested in being one. She never asked me for forgiveness, and now she expects me to start the group of women cheated on by my ex. I told her other things, and I would love to be able to post videos here. I told her that she knew very well what she got herself into. She knew well that my ex was capable of cheating on the mother of his baby, but she still decided to marry him and live the stupid fantasy that she could change him and that she was different from all the other women he was with. God, I hate long audios, but it was plus 5 whole minutes telling her that her situation and mine are nothing alike. I think that was my greatest catharsis. She got upset and we started arguing. It was quite tiring, and the last thing I want is to have problems after 17 years of having normal co-parenting. I know they are not going to get divorced, and that means I will have to live with her in my life forever. So I sent a message to my ex, resending him one of the audios she sent me. I took the work to listen to them all, and she never apologized to me. I don't need her apologies, by the way. I don't care, but some comments asked me about that. They were just audios complaining and wanting us both to speak badly about him or wanting to have me as her free therapist. I told my ex to tell his wife to calm down and pay for a psychologist. He apologized to me and told me that they are both working on the marriage. So they're at the stage where she still feels angry and insecure with him. Like, yes, obviously, idiot. So since I suffered the same, no, it's not the same. She felt that we could share the pain. He told me that they both started going to the online conferences of I don't know what couple who teach how to get over an infidelity. Sometimes I feel envious of people who can scam others so easily. Anyway, I told him that I'm not friends with her and that this affects our co-parenting. So he should put a stop to her if she doesn't understand what I say. In the end, he reluctantly told me he was going to talk to her, and I've gone 3 days without any message from her, except today one where she just told me that my daughter was sleeping there, so I guess it worked. I don't care if they live a happy or miserable marriage. I don't care if she's happy knowing that he cheated on her but stays with him anyways. I just want to live in peace without getting into trouble with people who, at plus 40 years old, are still living mentally in high school. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Found out my wife's affair with her best friend's husband in a hotel room. We caught them red-handed, recorded the evidence, and exposed their infidelity online. My wife and I were still very young and in love when I discovered she was letting someone else tap her honeypot. My wife and I met in our hometown, and shortly after I returned from college to settle down there, I loved her from first sight. After several dates together, we started dating and married after dating for a year and 3 months. Meeting and marrying May was like a dream come true for me. She was the kind of girl I always wanted to settle with. She was hardworking, beautiful, intelligent, and fun to be with. There was never a dull moment with her, and I looked forward to waking up next to her every day. May was also a passionate lover. She loved me with everything in her, and while our marriage lasted, we barely fought or did anything to hurt each other. We lived in peace and harmony and treated each other respectfully. I was and still am a good man and ensured that I cared for May and provided her needs. May worked as a receptionist at a big, fancy female store, and our earnings were enough to keep the house running. We never had any financial issues because we tried our best to live within our means. And throughout the 2 years we were married, we supported each other and pushed ourselves to find better jobs. With May, I felt fulfilled and looked forward to spending the rest of my life with her. She was a child at heart and had her way of adding colors to any place she went to. People loved May, and she was really popular amongst her friends. We lived in a small town, so there was hardly a place May and I went to that she wasn't recognized. mainly because her father held a leadership position while she was in high school. Aside from being a great wife, May was also a great friend, and she had two best friends she often used to hang out with. Most times, they would decide to go on a weekend vacation or have their regular girls' night, and I never tried to stop her because I understood that it was normal for her to want to hang out with her friends even when we were married. I also became friends with her best friends' husbands, so whenever May and her best friends went on vacation, the three of us would hang out together and spend time together. We did this for 2 years. May and I were married, and even when we would all hang out as a family unit, I never suspected that May was cheating on me with one of her best friend's husbands. Although I noticed she was close to one of them, I didn't think there was any extra. I thought he was the one she related with the most, and I kept believing this until I discovered a dark truth. One evening, May told me she was stepping out to hang out with the girls as usual, and I watched her as she prepared, wore a new dress she had recently bought, and did her makeup. She was always like that, and I didn't see anything off. I even gave her some cash in case she needed to buy anything for herself and her girlfriends. About an hour after she left, I was searching for my golden watch in our jewelry drawer when I found May's ring. I wasn't comfortable that she left her ring behind, and it was very unlike her to do so. So I tried to call her, and after calling her several times and she didn't pick up her call, I resorted to calling one of her best friends. On the first call, her best friend took the call, and when I asked her if I could speak with my wife, she told me May wasn't with her, and she said they weren't hanging out that night either. While I was trying to wrap my head around the fact May lied to me and left her wedding ring at home, her best friend asked if her husband was with me. He wasn't, and I was surprised that she asked. She was shocked when I told her I had not seen her husband since the last time we all hung out. She said her husband told her he was going out with me for a drink that night, and it was weird that he wasn't with me. At this point, we realized that something was off, and we concluded that there was a possibility my wife and her husband were together since they coincidentally lied to us on the same night. To find her husband, she tried to check her husband's Snapchat location, but it was turned off. And when I checked May's Snapchat location, it was on, and we both decided to go down there. My heart nearly fell in my stomach when I realized that May's location was a hotel. And after asking a couple of questions, we found the hotel room May lodged in. Meanwhile, we started documenting my process of going to May's hotel room. And when I knocked on the door of the room she lodged in and she opened it, she was beyond shocked to see me and her best friend there. She was naked underneath the bathrobe she was wearing, and her best friend's husband was lying in bed, expecting that she would attend to whoever knocked on the door and return to him immediately. We got into the room. I started yelling at her while recording her, and she was so embarrassed. Her best friend was so upset that she hit her husband and attacked May for being a betrayer and homewrecker. May was so ashamed that she could not look me in the eye. She did not even try to explain. She only stood in one position with tears running down her cheeks. After I had recorded enough, I left with her best friend and warned her not to set her feet at home. She didn't come home that night. She probably slept in the hotel room with her affair partner that night. She didn't only lose her marriage, she lost her friend of so many years too. Her best friend and I decided to post the video online without covering their faces to humiliate her more. We combined the video and the Snapchat location and kept posting them online until many people started sharing them. It was so humiliating for her, especially since most people in our hometown knew her and her best friend had been friends since high school. It was my first time being so heartbroken, and I was not myself for weeks. Days after I caught her with her best friend's husband, she tried to beg me and promised it would never happen again, but everything she said fell on deaf ears. We divorced because I could not stand the shame of being associated with her infidelity. Likewise, her best friend divorced her husband and got custody of their 2 kids. Meanwhile, after the video went viral, my wife could not go out because of the look she got from people. She couldn't even attend her high school reunion because everyone had seen the video. On my end, I had to move to a different location to start life all over again. Whenever I remember how my wife played on my intelligence and betrayed her friend of more than 15 years, it still surprises me. She didn't value our marriage or her relationship with her friend, and anyone who can do such a thing can do even more terrible things. I know I will not get into another relationship anytime soon because my heart still breaks when I remember how much I loved my wife and how she ruined everything we had. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Divorced my husband after his mom fed my daughter essential oils and put her in ICU. Now he's begging me back while planning to secretly take our daughter out of the country. I will be rambling a little as I am very mad right now. My ex and I were married for well over 5 years and together for 10. His mother was a nightmare. She would spend her time belittling me and tried humiliating me. I could take it as I loved my husband and didn't want to make him choose between her or me. Of course, I would always tell him what she would be doing, and he would always brush it off as her being a loving and overprotecting mom. When she would say something racist, I am Hispanic and they are white, he would laugh it off. When she would make a comment of me being a gold digger, even though I earned more than my ex, he would just say, "Oh, Mom." He would also get mad at me if I ever stood up for myself. But the straw that broke the camel's back is when we had our daughter. My MIL would always try to parent her and say that I would do something wrong. My daughter has an irritable colon, and she cannot ingest any kind of oils or artificial things. And guess what that loony of a woman did? She fed my 3-year-old daughter essential oils to make her go to sleep. She is not anti-vax, just very stupid. My daughter was in the ICU. I had it, and I confronted my husband who said, "She only did what she thought was best." I lost it. I went to my parents and drafted a divorce agreement. That's the best course of action. I saw a post earlier describing a situation that is much more dangerous than mine, involving allergens and an EpiPen. His face was like that Pikachu meme when I served him. He didn't know why I was doing it because we were happy. So now a year has passed, and my life was hell. My monster-in-law tried every dirty trick in the book to take my daughter. To name a few. She accused my brother of molesting her. She accused me of neglect. She accused me of taking drugs and leaving them in reach of a toddler. I take thyroxine? For heaven's sake. She accused me of endangering my daughter by leaving a random man in my house. The list goes on. During this time, the excuse of my ex was that I broke his heart and I had to understand his mother. She only wants what's best for him. Luckily, I got good representation and even got my daughter full-time, minus some weekends or visitation. I could prove that my daughter was endangered by his mother. So now to the advice part. I knew that my ex needed to be permanently in my life because of my daughter, and I was learning to live with that. He was very cold with me because, again, I broke his heart. Now 2 things have come together. My ex-BIL got married to an African-American woman, so of course, my ex-MIL flipped. I started dating again. My ex-BIL is a great guy, and he actually stood up for his wife. Go figure, it is possible. I stay in contact with him because we are friends, and he was a mediator and fought with his brother quite often. So my BIL actually stood up for his wife, and my ex-husband got his panties in a twist. My BIL basically opened his eyes to how shitty he was being, and that their mom treated me the same way she treated his wife, and finally my dense ex started understanding. The guy I am seeing is great. I have even met his parents, and his mother is normal. She treats me like a human being and has invited me already to many family functions and tries to make me and my daughter feel welcomed. My ex got wind of the situation through a mutual friend, and guess who is now flipping his lid? He started bringing flowers and chocolate, I don't even like chocolate, to pick up our daughter. He sends me cards and SMS with hearts and who knows what. Yesterday was the best thing. My daughter was at my mother's place, and I was at home with my boyfriend. He appears in front of my door crying and clutching my engagement ring, begging me to come back. I said no and that he should go away. He wouldn't and started demanding that I come out to talk to him. My boyfriend told him that he would call the police, and in his pathetic fashion, he threatened to beat my boyfriend up. I closed the door and let him pound sand. Today he picked up my daughter for a day trip, and when they came back, my daughter was asking if I loved my boyfriend more than her. Now I'm at a loss as to what to do. I already told my daughter that it was impossible because my love for her is infinite and there is nothing bigger than infinite. But now I know that my ex is trying to make my daughter hate me. I am at a loss because I won't use my daughter as ammunition, but also, what the hell am I supposed to do? I will never return to that man, but I can't take away the father of my daughter. Do you guys have any advice? Edit 1. Thanks you all. I needed to vent and was feeling helpless, and I'm so thankful for you wonderful people. I talked to my lawyer who confirmed that we could have a case for domestic violence by proxy. A social worker will be visiting us in the next few days to talk to my daughter about this. Edit 2. Because apparently people want to spin the narrative on me. I don't care if he wants me back. I don't love him anymore, and we will never get back together. With him staying for the sake of our daughter would not make sense, as it has been proven that kids grow up happier in divorced homes than unhappy homes. I tried talking to my husband when we were still married, and he would always brush it off. He would brush off everything his mother did. I complained to him and told him we needed to go to therapy, which he declined. He has his daughter on the weekends. The court gave me majority custody because of his mother. Jesus. I guess in some of y'all's eyes I should have kept being by my ex's side as a submissive bimbo. Update 1. I just posted here yesterday, but it feels like weeks have happened. So I have just left my daughter with my mother and I'm going to my lawyer again. I followed some advice you guys gave me, and we sat down with my daughter to chit-chat. We knew we couldn't prompt any kind of responses by asking overly specific questions as per her therapist. So my mother asks my daughter, let's call her Kat. Kat, what do you and Daddy talk about? And Kat just listed many toddler things like she talks about kindergarten games, etc. When I was kind of relieved that that comment my ex made yesterday may just be a one-off, came the big bomb. He also shows me pictures of houses and tells me I can have now 2 rooms with loads of stuff. I ask if her dad is buying a new house. Nope. Turns out that Nut wants to take my daughter out of the country. He shows her pictures of beach houses and even bought her a bag so she can put her stuff inside it, which explains why so many of her clothes have gone missing. At first I thought that maybe my ex hadn't told me yet because it hadn't come through. But no, he told my daughter to keep this as a secret because Mommy would get sad if she knew that Daddy was going away. So I am beyond livid and also sad because I will have to tell my daughter no once again. I feel lost. Edit. I talked to my lawyer and we have taken measures that I can't discuss here, but we are on it. I have my daughter's passport as we flew last month to visit extended family. Also, I am a US citizen, so even if my ex-MIL tried to have me deported, that wouldn't be possible. Update 2. So I thought of giving you the last update as you helped me through this. I didn't have enough evidence to request an ex parte, aka emergency child custody. So my lawyer and I had to work on steps to prevent child abduction. We got a custody decree that included provisions including passports, travel restrictions, etc. We also had to be very wary of the signs. He in fact quit his job, and on a realtor's page, I saw that he was putting his mother's house on sale. That and my daughter's words was all we needed to notify law enforcement for them to keep an eye out. I couldn't prevent my daughter from seeing her father. We tried to continue business as usual without my daughter feeling something was up. I got a call from the police department regarding the passport situation. My daughter's passport had expired very recently, 5 years validity. My ex-husband had tried to request a passport for my daughter without my knowledge, which was stupid because even without the decree, I had to be present or submit a notarized document of me stating that he could request the passport. After that, things actually went very fast. He was investigated because he violated the decree, and it was found out that MIL had bought 3 tickets with no return date to Mexico. I could request an ex parte after a ton of documents. I submitted it. In most cases, the judge will evaluate behind closed doors. We had the hearing yesterday. It takes usually 10 to 20 days, which was very good for me ATM. I have sole custody for my daughter. This is all temporary. My ex has visitation rights if I was present, but he can't take her anywhere. This is once the investigation of him is closed. I was cursed out by my ex and ex-MIL, and they said they will try to contest this, but they have no leg to stand on. My daughter will continue in therapy, especially after this. I will not prohibit him from seeing her, but he needs help. This was really scary and a very intense 2 weeks. I don't think that I will update again, but I wanted to thank you all for your tips and support. I am really thankful as I am finally not anxious the whole time. Thank you very much. Now on to the next story. Story 11. A coworker asked me to be her man of honor. I said no and she went nuts. What did I miss? Original post. This happened yesterday, and I'm still confused. Yesterday was my first day back to work after being off for 2 weeks. This is kind of important. One of my coworkers had gotten engaged the week before I left. When she announced it at work, we all did the congratulations and were happy for her type of things. I thought it was over, so when I left for vacation, last I knew, no plans had yet been made. Then yesterday, when I went back to work, my boss, Kim, and best friend, Laura, said that coworker Claire was looking for me. I asked what was up, and they weren't sure, but she was carrying a little gift bag. A few minutes later, Claire found me and asked how my vacation was. I was telling them about it, and she cut me off and said she had a very important question to ask. She handed me a little gift bag and asked if I would be her best man of honor for her wedding. I thanked her and told her that typically, this would traditionally go to a close female relationship. She responded that there was nothing traditional about her wedding, so it was good. I looked over at Laura and Kim, who were both trying to keep from laughing. I again thanked her and congratulated her and told her that I wasn't interested in being part of her wedding party and that I would be happier being a guest in the audience. I swear when I said this, it was when we watched her entire demeanor change, and a switch flipped. She went off, saying that I have to be at her wedding and that she doesn't understand why I would say no. I told her that we only knew each other for a short time and that I had no interest in trying to plan parties, dinners, and shopping trips. She told me I needed to think about it, and she would get back to me later. I told her to go for it, but my answer will be the same. She walked away, and I looked at Kim and Laura and asked, "What the ever-loving fresh creepy hell was that?" Kim started to laugh and said she didn't know, but saying no like I did might have saved me a lot of headaches in the future. Laura made the comment that she went straight to Bridezilla, and this was a look into what she was going to be like. Claire came back today. However, she went with a different approach and handed me a list of what she wants me to do and her vision of how she sees things. I asked her why she gave me this, and she said that as her man of honor, these were my responsibilities. I told her again that I was not going to do any of this. She said again that she needs me to do this and how much fun it was going to be. Then she asked, "Haven't you ever wanted to be the part of something special?" I told her I was a nurse. Enter Kim, who could sense that I needed help and told Claire one of her patients needed her help. I told Kim that if this keeps up, I might need her help. She said she was already watching it and would intervene if I needed it. What did I miss? We aren't that close. She just transferred down to my unit from a different unit 6 months ago. I had no idea who she was until that point. Laura is saying that she is close in age to me, and she might feel that to be enough of a connection. Did I miss something when we are asked? Are we supposed to automatically gush and jump up and down in excitement? Why is saying no a bad thing? Some of OP's comments. Commenter. It seems Kim is useless here. You really need to go over Kim's head and nip this in the bud right now because Claire isn't taking no for an answer. P. Kim will help, I know she will. She is just waiting to see what her next step is. I have had to have her help with a work issue before. If I have problems with her the next time we work together, they all let Kim loose. Commenter. Could this be some weird way to flirt? T. It won't work with me. I like dick lol and I have a boyfriend lol. Commenter. I'm not an expert, but isn't this an HR issue now? I mean, isn't that like harassment? OP. It becomes an issue if I report it. My boss is seeing all of it so far and has said that she is watching the situation and will intervene if it keeps going. I'm off tomorrow, so I won't see her for a couple of days. Commenter. She wants to show off how different and edgy she is by having a man of honor. She may also admire your organizing skills and get it done demeanor and thinks you'll throw her great wedding-related parties. OP. I'm a bad gay guy friend. I'm organized when it comes to a lot of things, but planning a wedding is something I have never done and really don't want to learn to do. If I were to ever get married, it's midnight under a full moon at the beach with a few friends and a cookout the next day. LOL. Commenter. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but since she's advertising that it's a non-traditional wedding, is it possible she's after you for a specific reason? Are you gay or part of a racial minority? It's possible she wants her wedding to look super diverse for Instagram reasons, and maybe she's after you for a specific vibe in the pictures, regardless of the reason. NTA. OP. I don't know her background. Yes, I am gay, and the entire department knows it because I was dating a former nurse and we broke up. Now I'm dating someone from a different department, and it's all known. All she said was it was a less than traditional wedding, and it would be okay. Yesterday, K and L asked if I was afraid of something about it, maybe if I had to wear a dress. I said I would rock the dress. I might need a push-up to fill out the front of a dress if it's strapless, lol. But I just don't want anything to do with it. I have no interest. My life is crazy enough right now. Planning a wedding would go from crazy to insane. Update 1. Hey everyone, first I apologize. I never thought this was gonna go as crazy as it did. I want all of you to know I read all of your responses and responded to as many as I was able to. Thank you all for your amazing insights and comments. Many that made me laugh, which I needed. I have been sick and that really helped to cheer me up. I had to meet with my lawyer today regarding family issues. Editor's note. OP goes into detail about those issues and other posts on his profile, but they weren't relevant here so I didn't include them. My neighbor, best friend, coworker Laura took me. I really felt awful and driving wasn't a good idea. We were talking about this on the way, and we both were asking a lot of the same questions that all you were asking. The big one was that we were asking about the circumstances of her transfer. She went from Med-Surg 4W to the ER. That is a huge change. I have to work tomorrow, so we will see what happens, but Laura and I are going to ask him about the transfer and raise a couple of other concerns. After I got home from the meeting with my lawyer, I slept for the rest of the day. Many of you asked about if Claire and I hang out outside of work. The answer is no. I really don't know anything about her. I have helped her a few times with patients and different things, but our relationship is 100% purely work-related. That was why I was so surprised that she asked me to do this. That is why I was so surprised that she asked me about being the man of honor. I have a very small friend base, and in all honesty, I like to keep it that way. I really have no interest in being a part of this. I'm not a wedding person. After reading so many Bridezilla stories and hearing about over-the-top weddings, they have become a huge turnoff to me. Spending tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars with insane, unrealistic demands that turn people against each other. Why? I would rather use that money and spend that time planning my next trip or vacation. Many people said that I was being used as a token or prop in a wedding or a gay best friend. I never really thought about it. I admit that I'm out and proud, but I'm not going to just pretend to be someone's friend just so they can fulfill some kind of fetish they have for wanting to have a gay best friend or some kind of status she feels the need to fulfill. It takes me a lot to get offended, but if this were actually the case, then I would really be rather offended. I was not put on the face of the earth to be someone's play toy. A lot of people have said that maybe she doesn't have a boyfriend. She does. She has brought him in before. If she has any insecurity, I don't understand it. She is attractive, smart, and knows her stuff, so I'm at a loss as to why she is acting like this. A lot of people say, go to HR. I'm starting that process with my boss, Kim. She is completely aware of the situation, being with us when all this happens. She has told me that she is watching the situation and will jump in if I need her to. I trust her completely. While Kim and HR can control the situation from the hospital, they can't control the situation from a personal level, if she were to maybe follow me home or a situation like that. So I think that covers it all. I wish I could say this is over, but most likely there is more to come. Please update me. Comments. Commenter. About that name, OP's username, you're not just an RN. Because there's nothing just about RNs or other nurses. You folks, regardless of gender, do the medical heavy lifting, and when we can't get a straight, sorry, answer from the oh-so-busy MDs, the nurses provide the info. My name is kind of an ongoing, running inside joke. I'm told at least once a day or so from a patient that I'm just a nurse. One day I heard it 3 times. I don't really take offense to this, and in a joking way, I repeated what the patient said, and my boss, Kim, jumped my case about, that's not the case at all. I love my job. It's a huge part of me and who I am. It's a part of my identity. Commenter. I'm curious about her list of demands or responsibilities. Like, did she really think you would change your mind now that you had all this BS work to do and money to spend? It pretty much had me planning the whole thing. She wanted me to plan the bridal shower, the bachelorette party, coordinate dress shopping and fittings, Make sure everyone was having fun with the whole thing, just to name a few. Commenter. OP. What the ever-loving fresh creepy hell is this? Lameo. OP. I had no idea what the ever-loving fresh creepy hell was from something. It's just something I have always said. Mini update and comments. Next day, I'll be posting an update in a day or two. Things came to a head today, and it was pretty much just as everyone was saying. I need to take some time to understand everything that happened today. I also have a meeting scheduled Monday with the director of nursing at my hospital, which should bring closure, I hope. Update post. This intro is going to be long, but I'm telling you about this for a reason, and later in this update it will make sense. I'm hoping this will be done and that this will be the last of this whole situation. I was born into a family where I was referred to as an issue that needed to be dealt with. I lived in the shadows of my sister, who was the child my parents wanted. They wanted one child, which was a girl, that way dad had his daddy's girl, and mom had mommy's little princess. Then I came along. Keep in mind that I'm 23, so back then my parents had options but chose to not use any of those options. So instead, my parents raised my sister, and I was raised by a nanny who, even to this day, is one of the biggest influences in my life, and I am so grateful for her. She helped me so much. I finally realized that all these years later, that by being referred to as an issue that needed to be dealt with, that they stripped me of my humanity and individuality and self-worth as a person. I think that's why I have worked so hard to establish myself in my career and in my life as a way to become a person again and not just be that issue that needed to be dealt with. This past Thursday, things came to a head with the bridezilla known as Claire, and the truth came out. My best friend, Laura, has been sticking close to me when we worked together. If Claire was to start something, we weren't sure if she was going to leave it alone or start up again. I was really hoping that it was done, but she had to try once again. I've been sick, and I had a busy morning, so I really just wanted a few minutes to go to the bathroom, grab a quick snack, and maybe breathe. Claire came up and had her list and asked if I had a few minutes to talk about the wedding planning. I looked at her and told her again that I was not interested in being part of her wedding and that I was not going to help in any way, and she needed to drop the subject and leave me alone. Again, she went into the whole thing of how I was going to do this and how much fun it was going to be. Here we go with that line all of you love the first time. Why in the ever-loving fresh creepy hell is it so important for me to be your man of honor? I'm not interested, and I'm not doing it. It is exactly as pretty much all of you told me it would be. She was just planning on using me as a token or a play toy. She took all of the gay stereotypes that are out in society and put them into one sentence. What modern liberal woman isn't going to have a gay bestie on her arm for special events? I felt everything in my stomach move, and a wave of nausea came over me, and I felt like I couldn't get to the bathroom fast enough. This pissed Laura off to no end. Laura is really kind of like the overprotective sister that I wish I would have had and took Claire off to visit our boss, Kim, and laid it all out. Everything that was said while I wasn't in on that conversation, Laura and Kim filled me in on what was said. Kim came to check on me, and I was still hiding in the bathroom. She knocked on the door and asked if she could come in. I asked her for a bottle of water first. While I was waiting, I realized two things. I realized why I chose to not hang out with her and why I didn't like her. I couldn't figure out why I didn't like her, just that there was something that gave me the heebie-jeebies. But I realized that I didn't like her because she is a different version of my sister. While Claire is educated and employed, she doesn't care about other people and their feelings. She is like my sister in the sense that if she wants something bad enough, she will figure out how to get it. The second thing I realized was that she did exactly what my parents did to me. She completely dehumanized me and reduced me to an entity, just kind of turned me into a token or a thing for her. I think the word that best describes it is, I must be a play toy. What really gets me is that just like my sister, Claire doesn't think she did anything wrong, and I'm being too sensitive and a delicate snowflake. The next day, an emergency meeting was held at work, and Claire is being suspended pending investigation, and a new transfer is being looked into. Kim made the request for her to be terminated. The director of emergency nursing said this was a last resort, but she was going to be looking into options, which could be sending her to a new hospital or facility. This didn't go over well with me. I asked what would happen if she did the exact same thing to someone different. She didn't really give me an answer, but she said she still needs to look into a few things, and at this point, she is suspended anyway. Here it is. I'm still pretty sick and had to work this weekend. If I can, I'll respond. I want to thank everyone for all the amazing support. I am going back to my lawyer to see if he can figure out how to send her a cease and desist letter to make sure she doesn't contact me. I'm heading to bed. Have a good night. Edit. I keep forgetting to thank my boyfriend. He has been with me on this, but more in the background. First, when we were laughing about it, but when everything Thursday happened, he was there as well. Elle was able to get him away from his unit for a little bit for the okay boyfriend hug. He stayed the night with me a couple of nights as well, also helping with me being sick, so yeah, I'm very lucky to have such great support. OP's comments. Commenter. What if she targets a vulnerable gay patient next? She's a danger and a liability for your employers to be sued. OP. Thank you for this response. I just texted Kim and asked her about this. She said she was trying to get her fired, and she is hoping this will help the purpose. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.